There we go. I'm going to restart it, so I'll re-kick. Should bring it on. There we go. There we go. That should get it going. Apologies to the YouTube stream coming in a little bit late here. There was a stream error, so YouTube, you've missed just a few clips. Nothing too major. We're just getting the show started. So you haven't missed much if you're tuning in on YouTube. Probably just like 5 minutes of miscellaneous clips. Probably the best thing you missed was Pompeo blowing up a Bob Corker. That's probably the highlight of what you missed. But I actually saved my best Pompeo taking it in the face clip for a little bit later, so you actually haven't missed the good stuff yet. We were just talking about Iran, so there you go. Now you're up to date. And if you're in the chat room, pass the word around that the YouTube stream is up now. youtube.com/JupiterBroadcasting/live is all you got to go to. So Trump had a press conference earlier today, and at the end they asked him if Russia is still targeting the U.S., and he says no. He sneaks it in there, and it's already got people pissed off.
I do think so.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Press,
Thank you.
Make your way out. Is Russia
Is Russia still targeting the U.S., Mr. President?
Thank
Press,
you very
let's
much.
go. Make your way out.
There it is, right there. No. No, he says no. And then they really get the press out of there. Listen in the background.
Thank you
Press,
very
let's
much.
go. Make your
No, he says no.
way out. No, you don't believe that to be the case? Let's go. We're finished here.
Let's go, they say. Get the hell out of here. Hey, press, get out of here. Get out of here, you stinking press. All right, I'm going to play a little Cruz. Ted Cruz just can't answer a question to save his damn life. And, man, I just when I watch this clip, I picture a reality where Ted Cruz had won the election and then having to listen to this man talk all the time would have been mind-numbing. He gets asked a pretty straightforward question, and he just manages to politician it up. Like, did he go to some sort of school where they teach you not how to answer questions?
All right, so hear the administration tell it. These are the sinister six. Only in the case of former FBI Director James Comey and number two at the Justice Department, Andy McCabe, they don't have that security clearance anymore. But that was not the point. The point was that, at least in the eyes of Democrats and a lot of Republicans, this was sort of tin pot dictator type of stuff. You're going after guys who are saying some bad things about you, trying to take their security clearance away. But simple-minded reporter though I am, I started saying to myself, how is it that people who've been years out of power still have these security clearances, can still get access to all of this intelligence? And then I'm saying, how long do they have that for? And who decides this? And is it just a courtesy or is it just overkill? To Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz, probably knows these matters in and out. Senator, good to have you back with us.
Always good to be with you, Neil. Thanks for having me.
How long do folks have this type of access, Senator, and who and how many?
Well, listen, I think you raise a perfectly fair question, which is it's not clear that people should be maintaining security clearances if it's not needed for their current responsibilities. When someone is in the job of head of the CIA or director of national intelligence, obviously it's needed intensely. But if you're not in that role anymore, if you're doing something else in the private sector, it's not clear why it should be maintained. And let me say more fundamentally, look, what our focus should be across party lines is protecting the national security interests of the country. I mean, this is a divided time. For all of us, I think it's painful to see just how polarized and nasty it is. But it doesn't help the national security interest when you have someone like a John Brennan, the former head of the CIA, who begins screaming that the president has committed treason. I mean, that kind of overheated rhetoric is not productive. It's not helpful. And it just tears us apart. And so I would hope that these former officials would demonstrate some restraint not to immediately go to extreme hyperbole.
Well, what do you think of president officials like Senator Bob Corker, who said that this is the stuff that banana republics do, or this vendetta that the president seems to be on is a dangerous, slippery slope?
Well, look, lots of people use all sorts of rhetoric. I think what we ought to be focusing on is substance. You know,
do you think he went too far in that characterization?
What I will say is a lot of this discussion started with the president's news conference with Putin. I think President Trump made a mistake with Putin. I think he should have been more vigorous in that news conference. I think it's a bad idea for the president not to be visibly and vocally standing up to Russia. Now that being said, I think what matters most is substance. And I'm encouraged in the last year and a half that we've put strong sanctions on Russia. I'm encouraged that the administration has provided lethal aid to Ukraine to stand up to Russia. But I think we need to continue focusing on defending this nation and not be in a position of treating America and Russia as morally equivalent, not be in a position of apologizing for Russia.
No, I understand what you're saying, but Senator, do you worry that the president, whether he, sent the wrong message or used the wrong words, I take him at his word that that's what happened here, but do you think that in the process here he is confusing folks? Because today, sending out a tweet that he thinks that the Russians, he's watching to see if they try to get involved in this election. He's convinced that they'll be, if they do so, they'll be there to help the Democrats because they don't want to help him. What did you make of that?
I think there is a virtue and clarity in foreign policy, clarity standing with our friends and clarity standing up to our enemies. Putin is a KGB thug. It's not complicated. He's not a complicated man. Putin has been very candid saying he thinks...
Wait a minute, I thought he was a 4D chess player now.
The greatest geopolitical disaster of the 21st century is the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and I think Putin is trying to expand.
So do you think they should cancel this fall meeting that they have already? We're getting word that Vladimir Putin might not come now or might put it off. What do you think?
I have to admit, I don't worry a lot about whether there's a meeting or not having a meeting. What I worry more about is the substance. We need to be standing up against Russian aggression. We need to be standing up against Russian hostility. And when it comes to election interference, yes, they interfered in 2016, as they did in 2012, as they did in 2008. Russia's not our friend.
So why
and I
does the
do think the administration should be unequivocal.
Why does the president seem to have a tough time with that?
I don't know.
When the world is threatened, the world needs help, it calls on America. And that's the story.
Fuck yeah.
Now, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Good to see you as always, sir. What do you think?
Good to see you as always. Starts it off with a lie, everybody. He starts it off with a big fat lie.
A member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Good to see you as always, sir. What do you think?
Everything she says is wrong. Number one, she's a nice lady. The Iran nuclear deal went to the Congress and it was rejected in a bipartisan fashion, but we didn't get 60 votes. It was voted on in the House in a bipartisan vote of rejection. It's not a treaty. Trump's not bound by the worst deal since Munich. So I am so pleased that Pompeo made the Reagan speech toward Iran like Reagan made toward the Soviet Union. I am so pleased that President Trump is letting the Iranian president know there's a new sheriff in town. Everything Obama did not work. He would crawl through glass to get this deal with the Ayatollah who took all the money, not the people. We're on the verge of history here. The Trump doctrine when it comes to Iran was Ronald Reagan's doctrine when it came to the Soviet Union. It is an evil empire. We're going to stand with the people. I'm going to introduce a resolution soon siding with the Iranian people against the regime, and let's see how Congress votes.
And how will that work?
Well, I'll have a resolution saying that we stand with the Iranian people for their right to self-determination, condemning the regime for holding American sailors hostage on the high seas, for disrupting the Mideast, for murdering innocent Iranians who just want to be able to determine their own future.
Graham's going to do another overthrow.
An indictment against the Ayatollah and his henchmen. This is
going to be the beginning of an American-sponsored civil war. Oh, I'm sorry, not the beginning. It's going to be the continuation of an American-sponsored civil war. Civil war! Civil war! It's going to be a civil war backed by the United States of America.
Worst regime in the world in terms of threats. Russia, North Korea are threats. Radical Islam like Al-Qaeda are threats. But the biggest threat of all to me is this regime in Iran. They're religious Nazis who are trying to develop a nuclear capability. And the question is, would they hit Riyadh and Saudi Arabia first or go to Jerusalem? The Arabs and the Israelis are now united against Iran. Mike Pompeo's speech was awesome. President Trump's tweet says there's a new sheriff in town. We're going to bring this regime down by helping the Iranian people. Regime change is the only way to save Mideast from this perpetual conflict.
There it is. Right there. There it is, right there. You just heard him say it.
Hey.
You just heard him say it. Right there. You just heard him say it.
You sound like you're on heroin or something. What?
Regime change is down. We're going to bring this regime down by helping the Iranian people. Regime change is the only way to save Mideast from just perpetual conflict. This regime needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do that, though? And you know, what about, you said Maria was wrong in everything she said, but what do you think about the fact that sometimes this...
I almost feel like I should probably put that in the show. You know, I don't really have a spot for it in the show, but yeah, I might. You know what I might do is I might, let's see.
What about, you said Maria was wrong in everything she said, but what do you think about the fact that sometimes this kind of talk can embolden the hardliners?
We're going to bring this regime sheriff in town. Says there's a new sheriff in town. Some President Trump's tweet says there's some President Pompeo speech. Israelis are now united against Iran.
All right, I'm gonna pause it there. I might include that in the show, at least in the overtime. I think. Yeah, I think I will. I think I'll put that in the overtime, because I gotta tell you, that is just like, you know, I don't know about you, but see, my parents told me to finish one project before I started another project. Lindsey Graham needs to learn that lesson. You see, we still are fucking around in Iraq. We're still fucking around in Afghanistan. Libya, of course, Syria, of course. Now we're involved in Yemen, obviously. Not to mention all of the different areas in Africa that we're getting ourselves involved in. Like, at each level, we're either supporting a certain regime. In some cases, like in Afghanistan, we're just like giving regimes cash. We're trying to overthrow Assad in Syria. We've made a total clusterfuck out of Libya. Like, can we just, like, you know, wrap up, I don't know, a couple, maybe a dozen, you know, just wrap up like a dozen of your regime changes. And, you know, maybe hit the old pause button right here and reflect on the fact that Iran is in the situation right now because it started with us causing a government overthrow, which led to the current religious maniacs being in power as a response to us meddling in their government to begin with in the 50s. Man, I wonder why nobody ever asked him about that. Anyways.
So Iran responding to President Trump's tweet within hours, state-controlled media calling it a passive reaction to the comments from Iran's president. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Greg Palcott is following reaction from world leaders live in London.
Palcott?
Hi, John. In Iran, there was a mixed reaction, some dismissive, some pretty strong against the comments coming from President Trump. Iranian President Rouhani's defense minister saying, this is a quote, that the U.S. doesn't understand any other language than force. The head of the Revolutionary Guards in Iran branding the comments, quote, psychological warfare, and saying the U.S. wouldn't dare take action against Iran. Still, another Iran-based analyst simply called the words the storm before the calm, and another noted that the president also talked tough with North Korea before going the diplomatic route. Meanwhile, mixed reaction too globally about how to deal with Iran. A German government official saying that that country supports dialogue, talks, and, quote, rhetorical disarmament. The approach, however, gets approval from Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying that this clear position is against Iranian aggression and stands in contrast with years of world powers pampering the Iranian government. No one is on the fence on this one.
Oh, I have throat cancer. All right. Well, there you have it. There you have it. So, one more, and then we'll get the overtime started. I'm trying to pick and choose. Let's see. How about this will be in the overtime, so this will be relevant to that. Boy, this is meta. Because, like, the overtime is more information about clips in the main show, and now this is going to be more information about clips in the overtime. We're like in clip inception right now.
All right, joining us now with reaction to my opening monologue, my interview with Carter Page is the House Intel Committee Chairman, California Congressman Devin Nunes. Congressman, the Nunes memo has now been totally, completely corroborated by you. And people like Adam Schiff, to me, have been proven to be one of the biggest liars in the country.
Look at Nunes' face, just real quick. Look at that face. He can't say nothing, and Hannity can't help himself. I also have the distinct impression that maybe there was a conversation they had about not getting drug into some of this bullshit stuff, and then Hannity just drove right over that agreement. Because that's not a super police face. That's like, all right, you stupid fuck. All right, fine, we're doing this. It's so good. It's so good. I love it so much. I want to start it over. Mostly after this, it's mostly Nunes talking, and you don't have to listen to Sean's mouth, which both Sean and Rachel, left and right, as far as they get, they both trigger me so deeply sometimes. But just this moment is so precious. And Hannity will immediately recognize he stepped in it and then try to bail him out. But it's just worth savoring for a moment.
By you, and people like Adam Schiff, to me, have been proven to be one of the biggest liars in the country. I won't drag you into politics, that political commentary. Let me get your reaction. Number one, it was the bulk of information used to get a FISA warrant. Clinton's dirty dossier, full of Russian lies. You just heard Carter Page. Your thoughts?
Start with, most people in the media never even bothered to read our 3-page memo that was designed to be just a short compilation to protect sources and methods, because we only wanted to get out the main points, which were what? That they used the dossier, the dirt from the Clinton campaign, to make up the bulk of the FISA application. Matter of fact, they lead with it in the FISA application. So that's what we really wanted to get out to the American people, because we believed at that time that most Americans would agree, and I think they would agree if journalism wasn't so dead, as you said in your monologue. Most Americans, when you talk to them, when they're not watching the other cable news networks, and you talk to them about, is it okay for me as a politician to go out and pay someone to dig up dirt on my opposing candidate, whether it's running for president or governor or something else, and then feed it into the FBI? An FBI that's controlled by my own party. That only happens in Banana Republic. So that was the point of the memo. And it's sad that the media has failed to cover it. But what's even more surprising now is, now that we've been totally vindicated with the release of this FISA, just the pieces of the FISA applications over the weekend, you continue to see the media, they're going absolutely crazy. And I've never seen anything like it, and I think like you said, journalism's dead in this country, and I don't know what to do about it.
What is ironic in all of this is Hillary funnels money through a law firm. They hire an op research firm. And I have no problem with op research. That's politics. Then they hire a foreign national. I thought foreign nationals weren't supposed to impact our elections. But the dossier, according to Steele himself in an interrogatory in Great Britain, he says it's raw intelligence, never verified, never corroborated. But everybody that signed off on that warrant signed off on unverified, uncorroborated Russian lies that were literally designed to really steal an election after they rigged an investigation into what is irrefutable crimes, incontrovertible evidence of obstruction and a violation of the Patriot Act by Hillary. Well, and I'm just wondering, where is this? How does our constitutional republic survive?
Well, it can't survive it cannot survive without a free and open press actually doing their job, right? So let's just talk about the obvious thing that's out there that you're alluding to, and that is that the very thing that the Mueller investigation is all about is seeing if the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians to get dirt on Hillary and use it against her. Now, we actually know that that is exactly what Hillary Clinton did. Hillary Clinton paid people, went through intermediaries that got dirt from Russians to use it against Donald Trump. Yeah. I mean, that's what happened. So let's start there. But then let's go with some of the other nonsense that you're seeing now. You actually have people out there in the media, mainstream media, that are now talking about, well, the regs don't necessarily say that you have to verify all the evidence. Well, look, I think that's crazy talk. You absolutely should have to verify and validate the evidence that you're using to have probable cause when you go to a secret court to spy on an American citizen.
But they fed the court Russian lies bought and paid for by the opposition candidate, and they purposely didn't inform the court. No court would have approved these warrants if they knew the truth.
They went out of their way not to do it. So that's another point that they've been trying to make. So they went out of their way, instead of just saying, look, candidate 2 paid for this dirt on candidate 1. Candidate 2 would have been Hillary Clinton. That would have been a very simple way to describe it in the FISA application before the judge. Now, here's something else that actually my colleagues, Mr. Gowdy and Mr. Ratcliffe from Texas, who did a lot of these FISA warrants in his career and has had the opportunity to look at these in quite detail. He continually makes the point, which is a very good one. It's not so much how wrong it is, what they put into the FISA applications. That's really bad. But what's even worse is the exculpatory evidence that they left on the cutting room floor. So,
wow.
For example, there's something really important. If you had the information that you have with Bruce Orr, okay, who's at the heart of this because his wife was working for Fusion GPS, the Bruce Orr information, he knew that Christopher Steele didn't like Trump and didn't want Trump to win. The FBI had that in September.
His wife helped put it together.
That's right.
What you did is to help this
Yeah.
Democratic Republic survive.
Woo.
I actually worry about this abuse of power. I worry about a corrupt media. We're not going to stop on this program. Thank you for all you've done, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Fox News alert. Sean Hannity has Devin Nunes' dick in his mouth. Fox News alert. All right, well, I still haven't heard from Mr. Chase if he's en route or not. So I think that means not, because he's at an event down in Seattle, which maybe he'll tell us all about when he arrives. However, I feel like that's for naught. Perhaps we should start the show anyways. I do need an Alex Jones. I do need some Alex Jones clips. It's been a long time since I've had a good Alex Jones clip, hasn't it? Yeah, you know, I just sort of got Alexed out. I got to be honest with you. I just couldn't anymore. You know, I've also gotten Rachel'd out. I can't Rachel anymore. I've gotten viewed out. I'm just taking a break from him. Like, I rotate. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll come back to it. But I feel like I gotta give him like I gotta put him in probation for a bit. And, you know, I gotta like pull back and get some air. And then when when the occasion comes, like usually something crazy happens, then it's worth visiting, you know? And it has been a while. I wonder if this is gonna get us. Pulled down. Let's go for an Alex Jones clip. Let's go for an Alex Jones clip and just see how it goes.
She's a smart guy, media analyst, lawyer. During the break, and I said, "How could they defeat us when humanity's awakening?" And he said, "Well, they hold the keys of the kingdom. They have Apple transferred to China."
I don't know about this beard. I don't know about this. I don't know. I mean, I'm willing to give it a go for a bit.
Now banning emojis of Taiwan, your phone crashes. They just aren't willing to implement the censorship fully because they're afraid Congress and Trump might call them out.
This is Rando Jones Watch right here because I haven't reviewed this. This is you and me going all in.
And when I've talked to the White House and the president and his supporters lately, I've said, please, they're censoring, they're doing it, do something. Like, well, what are they doing? Write us a report. So I'm in the process of doing that, but it's here. And so,
did he just claim the White House asked him to prepare a report? Did that just happen?
I've said, please, they're censoring, they're doing it, do something. Like, well, what are they doing? Write us a report.
So yeah, he just claims the White House asked him to write a report.
So I'm in the process of doing that, but
okay,
it's here. And so
what? Was that just an opportunity for you to brag that you're writing a report for the White House?
They are ready to launch on all cylinders, ladies and gentlemen. They're ready to try to shut this whole thing down right now.
The Chinese, so we've gone from they've banned an emoji to, damn, that guy could make content from an emoji ban. That never even would have crossed my mind. That's fucking inspired. That was good. I enjoyed that. I like that. You want to do another one, or are we done? Let's do one more. Just one more. This is pretty good.
Don't take my predictions to the bank.
I predicted Trump was going to win.
Yeah, I didn't. I woke up on an airplane on the way to Warsaw and said I thought it was the Ambien talking when I read the screen. So
That's a weird
shocked.
thing to say.
But
well, let me tell you a little secret.
Oh yeah, what?
The military didn't get involved in hacking the election. It wasn't the Russians. It was the military and intelligence agencies blocked Hillary trying to steal some key states. And I mean, Trump's not just doing this on his own.
How does he know this?
You know, not my area. You know, my area is the First Amendment. So when it comes,
I'm just saying they've got their whole shadow government. But you know what happens when the shadow government and the deep state rebels? Because see, Trump's like deep state, deep state. That's only the top globalist Democrats that are trying to block him. The general deep state are just people in the whole. I mean, you know how countries work. I mean, China's got 100 million people outside its country that are military-age men who are really intelligence operatives in their companies and corporations. Congress is about to have hearings on it. Well, you don't think they're the only ones that do that, right?
Well, of course not. I mean, we've had that blueprint for years.
Yes.
You know, the British Empire did it. The French have it. We have it. You know, in China.
So the left and all you guys need to surrender because it's over. I mean, you're not going to win one. And if you kill Trump, there's backup plans for that.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Look, that one went in a different direction. That one went in a different direction than I was expecting. So this is why we don't go too deep down the old Alex Jones rabbit hole, because that's probably going to get my YouTube channel flagged now. Thanks, YouTube. You bastards. All right, let me do a quick scan here, and then we'll get started. That was, yeah, you're right. The chat room's talking about how uncomfortable his guests look. Yeah. Yeah, that was extremely uncomfortable looking. So let's see here. There is a couple of key moments. Oh, good. They've got them posted. Oh, good. All right. But first I wanted to catch what this was about.
Quickly to the White House, where in an unprecedented move, CNN correspondent Caitlin Collins was actually banned from a late afternoon press event in the Rose Garden because the White House simply didn't like the questions she asked the president earlier in the day. Caitlin, you were the network pool reporter representing the 5 television networks when you asked the president about that secret audio recording that the president's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, made of them discussing a hush money payment to a Playboy playmate who allegedly had an affair with Mr. Trump. Tell us precisely.
Jesus, that was a hell of a setup. God dang it, Wolf.
What happened, because it's very, very worrisome.
Yeah, that's right, Wolf. So I was blocked from attending an open press event here at the White House because the White House did not like the questions I posed to President Trump earlier.
Open press event, huh? Oh, geez, I should have gone then.
In the day during an event in the Oval Office with the President of the European Commission. So to walk you through exactly what was going on, I was representing the rest of the television networks during this spray, which is what we refer to it here at the White House, in the Oval Office. We were brought in for the top of the meeting between the President and the President of the European Commission. Both men delivered remarks, and then I and several other reporters started asking President Trump questions. This is a normal occurrence, and it is often our only chance to ask President Trump questions that day, and he often responds to us, Wolf. So to give you a sense of the questions that the White House did not like that we posed to President Trump, here they are.
Any collusion?
Did Michael Cohen betray you, Mr. President?
Thank you very much.
Did you slap Stormy?
Mr. President, did Michael Cohen betray you?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Mr. President, are you worried about what Michael Cohen is going to say to prosecutors?
Well, that's a really annoying question.
Are you worried about what is on the other tapes, Mr. President?
Thank you all.
It's a super frustrating question.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Why has Vladimir Putin not accepted your invitation?
None of those. So those are all really, yeah, those are all very provocative questions. I would imagine she is going to get kicked out.
Come on. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Let's go. Come on, guys. Thank you very much.
That's interesting.
We're done. We're done. Let's go.
We're done.
Why has Vladimir Putin not accepted your invitation, Mr. President?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, Wolf, the questions I asked, in case you couldn't hear them, was if the president was upset and felt that Michael Cohen, his former attorney, had betrayed him by allowing the release of that audio recording. We also asked if he was worried about what Michael Cohen would say to prosecutors. As you know, the president was tweeting about that recording with Michael Cohen just this morning on his Twitter account. And then I also asked the president if why Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, had not accepted his invitation to the White House yet. That was before the White House announced that they were going to postpone that meeting until next year. Now, Wolf, after that event was over, the president did not answer questions. He said, thank you. We left the Oval Office. And then later, I was called into the office of Bill Shine, the president's latest hire, who is his right-hand man for communications. It was him and the press secretary, Sarah Sanders, who told me that I would not be invited to an open press event here in the Rose Garden moments later at the White House because they thought the questions that I posed to President Trump were inappropriate for that venue. I told them that is often our only chance to ask the president questions. Those questions were questions any reporter would have asked, and I was there to represent all of the networks and therefore ask about the questions of the day along with the other reporters and my colleagues in that room. Because of that, the White House blocked me from going to an open press event here at the White House that all reporters are allowed to go because they did not like the questions that I asked President Trump.
Oh, that's too bad. You hear all these people lining up to defend her? All right, I need you guys to simmer down. Everybody get really quiet here for a second. I have to do an audio check, and I need everybody to be completely silent. If you actually got quiet, that's really funny because, obviously I can't hear you. I don't know if you knew that, but it's not a two-way thing. All right, so she's still bitching. They're still bitching.
Then he does something I've never heard of, and I was a White House correspondent for 7 years. He blocks you because of what you did, which was legitimate journalism. He blocks you from attending an open event in the Rose Garden simply because you asked questions they didn't like. It's truly shocking to hear that.
Shocking.
I think all of our colleagues, anyone who has ever served as a White House correspondent, I don't think anyone's going to remember a time where they block an accredited White House correspondent from a major news organization in the United States from attending an open event in the Rose Garden. So what's been the reaction since then, Caitlin?
Well, Wolf, we haven't heard anything else from the White House. We did send some CNN photographers and other reporters to that briefing, but they said to that press conference, that open press availability with the president, but they said I specifically could not go into that press conference. We have not had any other press availabilities here at the White House today. There was no White House press briefing with any of the press secretaries to take our questions in a public setting here in the briefing room where I'm standing now, Wolf. And I was simply just doing my job, asking questions of the president about the news of the day, some of the things the president had already remarked on, and then would make news on later when he did issue that statement through the National Security Advisor, John Bolton. But clearly the White House was not pleased. One more CNN item here.
With his latest spin on Russia interfering in the U.S. election.
Not their spin.
Tweeting this
Trump's
just
spin.
a little while ago, I'm quoting him now. I'm very concerned that Russia will be fighting very hard to have an impact on the upcoming election based on the fact that no president has been tougher on Russia than me. They will be pushing very hard for the Democrats. They definitely don't want Trump, close quote. That's simply clearly not true. The U.S. intelligence community has concluded that the Russian leader Putin was trying to help Donald Trump when he meddled in the 2016 election, something the Senate Intelligence Committee on a bipartisan basis recently backed up. If that's not enough, you can hear it straight from the source. We're talking about the Russian President Vladimir Putin, who specifically said in Helsinki at that joint news conference with the president that he wanted Donald Trump to beat Hillary in the election. Hillary Clinton. Listen to this.
President Putin, did you want President Trump to win the election, and did you direct any of your officials to help him do that?
Да, я хотел, чтобы он выиграл. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because he talked about bringing the U.S.-Russia relationship back to normal.
All right, Senator Mike Rounds is joining us right now. He's a Republican from South Dakota. He's a key member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us.
Appreciate the opportunity, Wolf.
So what do you think of the president's claim this morning in that tweet that the Russians are going to be working very hard in the midterm elections in November to help Democrats get elected and make sure that Republicans like you, I don't know if you're even up for re-election this time, but make sure Republicans lose?
Well, I think what will happen is that they'll try to create chaos in the election if they can. That's what they were trying to do in 2016.
Chaos.
They thought that Hillary would win. And when they saw an opportunity to help Mr. Trump, they took advantage of that.
So we have extra time together. Chase is going to be en route, but he'll be a little bit. So I'm trying to think of other things we could do to sort of catch up on. It's like you and me watching clips together now, because now we're going through the log of things that I haven't reviewed yet, which, not necessarily a bad thing to do either. So let's do a couple more of those, and then we'll get the overtime started. I just want to give Chase some extra time on the road, so why don't we do this? So yeah, there was one story that I definitely didn't really feel like was worth checking out, but since we have a little bit of time and it's here, let's start with this one. This was a story that I think was very, very calculated, and I'm surprised it took this long.
Ivanka Trump is shutting down her namesake fashion line. In a statement yesterday, she said, quote, "My focus for the foreseeable future will be the work I'm doing here in Washington." But the brand has been facing controversy and financial pressure. Bianna Golodriga is here with some of the unanswered questions. Bianna, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Ivanka Trump says she doesn't know when or if she'll ever return to the business.
While she claims that her decision is the only fair outcome for her team and her partners, some are questioning why she's chosen to take this action now.
And you can see we have everything.
Ivanka Trump's decision to shut down her 11-year-old company came without warning Tuesday.
It doesn't seem like her employees were really told of it more than really within the last few days. And it's also surprising because she's been pushing ahead in some respects internationally. Her brand's gotten a lot of trademarks in China.
Ivanka's fashion line focused on mid-priced women's clothing, shoes, and accessories. She had already given up day-to-day management of the company, as she told Gayle King last year.
What have you done with your business?
I have no involvement with any of it. I felt like proximity to my father and to the White House, I didn't want to also be running a business. So I put it into trust.
Still, Nordstrom and other retailers have dropped or scaled back on Ivanka's products, citing declining sales, prompting the president to tweet, "My daughter Ivanka has been treated so unfairly by Nordstrom." White House advisor Kellyanne Conway also promoted Ivanka's sales, sparking ethics complaints.
Go buy Ivanka's stuff is what I would tell you. I hate shopping. I'm going to go get some on myself today.
Because Ivanka's company is private, it's unclear how profits have been impacted since her father became president. Online sales reportedly fell 55% in the 12 months ending in June.
We're sort of relying on the fact that they've told us consistently that she's been profitable. She hasn't been hurt by the White House. So we can accept her explanation, but it also seems like there could have been a lot of other factors that perhaps played a role behind the scenes.
Abrams tells us the company's 18 employees are expected to be leaving in the next few weeks. It's unclear what sort of severance they'll receive, but we do know, according to Ivanka Trump's financial disclosure filings, that she earned more than $5 million from the trust last year.
I would think that it would be probably kept pretty tightly secret because of how public she is until the very last
Larry
second.
Kudlow is director of the National Economic Council. He's with us from Washington. Larry Kudlow, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Larry, I'd like to start with that farmer from Illinois. He voted for President Trump, and he says this is a bailout, it's a pacifier, and it's a bailout he'd rather not have. What would you tell that farmer?
Well, listen, I'll tell him how much I like him. He's a patriot. And the watchword has been trade, not aid. And I think that's the case in the majority of places. Some places need some help. You know, those have been the reports from the USDA and so forth. Sonny
Boy, this guy's health is obviously shit, huh?
Purdue. So
I know he's recently had medical issues, but damn.
What we put on the board is what I think is a temporary assistance measure. I don't think it's going to get near to $12 billion. I think that sums are going to be much lower. So nobody's really thrilled about this. We're just trying to protect American agriculture from some of the unfair trading practices.
Here's, of course, the criticism, which you've heard, but for those who haven't, and it's coming from conservatives, from the Wall Street Journal editorial page to a whole busload of Republicans. And the argument is that this is a fix to fix something that the administration created. The Wall Street Journal says the Trump administration is trying to fix an economic problem of its own making.
Oh! Well, I'm afraid, you know, my good friends at the Wall Street Journal editorial page.
Good friends.
Brothers, actually, and sisters.
Oh, my God.
But, look, you know, I would argue, don't blame President Trump. I've said this so often. The world trading system is broken. The WTO is broken.
That's right.
There's no reciprocity left. China's the worst offender, but not the only one around the world. Mr. Trump's trying to fix trading malpractice that goes back several decades. He's the first president to really stay with this.
Stay with it.
Tariffs have gone up. Non-tariff barriers have gone up. So
all right, so I want to adjust some of my video settings and see if it changes tearing and interlacing, and then play some more clips. I can't tell if it's their setup. I mean, my stuff is all set to be double-checking here. But it should all be nice and smooth. 30 hertz, progressive, force composition pipeline. Oh, yeah. So we're all, all right. So I guess they just have interlaced videos. I guess the CBS News Network just has interlaced video. I guess that's what the problem is there. Jesus, it's like they have so many so many things, like their audio sucks. Like, I mean, right now I got an air conditioner going in the background. So how is my audio, chat room? Can you, I mean, you must be able to hear the air conditioner rumbling away in the background, and you absolutely will be able to hear it when I take when Chase gets here. I guess I'll just have to turn it off when Chase gets here, because it'll be loud. Yeah, it doesn't sound too bad. Good. First reports are coming in. They say not too bad. First reports are nice. Thank you. Thank you. Check that. Roger that. All right, let's continue on then. Let's keep going. If I don't need to worry about it, let's take a look in the MSNBC bag. Now, be careful. This could cause some triggering. It is possible because it's MSNBC and it's Leon Panetta. I've warned you. You may need to put on your flame retardant pants. Grab yourself a beverage with some ice. It's about to get flamey. Leon?
Welcome back. We are continuing to monitor Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's testimony before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Joining me now is someone who knows a little something about foreign policy and the intel community, and it's Leon Panetta. He was, of course, Defense Secretary and CIA Director at different times under President Obama. He was also previously a White House Chief of Staff, OMB Director, Budget Committee Chairman, Member of Congress, served in a Republican White House, Democratic White House. Anyway, I'd run out of time if I keep doing the resume. Nice to see you, sir. Let me start with a basic question.
Oh, God, that was awkward. Let's watch it again. Let's watch it again.
I keep doing the resume. Nice to see you, sir.
Well, you know what's great, too? It's like neither one of them are new to this. So that's what I really enjoy about it, is they've both been doing TV for a long time.
Keep doing the resume. Nice to see you, sir. Let me start with a basic question to educate us all.
Yeah.
Why do you have a security clearance still, and what's the purpose of it?
That is a good question.
The former directors of the CIA retain a security clearance in the event that the director of the CIA
needs to consult,
wants to call you either back to Washington or call you to brief you on what's going on and try to seek your advice. That's usually the purpose of having that kind of clearance. You know, when I was director, I called upon my former directors, actually brought them to meetings at Langley and briefed them, had staff there brief them on sensitive issues, and then kind of open it up to get their advice.
How does that process work when you leave government? So you retain a clearance. Do you check in? Do you have to file a disclosure form once a year? Do people need to know about your finances? What are the rules for sort of ex officios?
You know, Chuck, I don't know what the rules are.
Oh, okay. I didn't know either. That's why I'm asking. Yeah, that's why I don't know. What is I guess what we're trying to find out is the president's threat meaningful?
Well, obviously the president has, I would assume, the authority to actually revoke somebody's clearance if that's what he wants to do. Obviously, the way the rules are with regards to clearances, you usually don't lose a clearance unless you've abused it in some way.
Gotcha.
Either revealing classified information or having some personal problems that could raise questions about whether you could retain classified information. But to just do it because you don't particularly like the comments that somebody's making with regards to your presidency, that's probably an abuse of that responsibility.
And is it only the CIA that gets this? And is it only members of the high-level members of Intel? Or what? Like, when do you stop keeping that clearance? Deputy director, next level down? What is that? What is that? What's your understanding?
I don't know all the rules as to who retains those security clearances or not. I do know that former directors of the CIA have that clearance.
Let me move to this issue of trying to figure out what President Trump and Vladimir Putin talked about in that 2-hour meeting. You've seen a lot of back and forth. Secretary Pompeo seems to indicate he thinks he has a pretty good understanding. Do you believe him?
You know, I watched the testimony. I think Mike Pompeo did the best job he could under the circumstances. Obviously, he wasn't present at that meeting between Putin and Trump. You know, it's obvious that, you know, it's hard to really be able to understand just exactly what was discussed and what was agreed to. I think what you're seeing here is kind of a disconnect. It's a disconnect between Mr. Trump and the tweets and the discussions and the things he likes to do, and what Mike Pompeo called U.S. policy, right. Which is what he and Jim Mattis and I guess Bolton to some extent all agree is U.S. policy. And that's much more consistent with what the United States has stood for. But there is this disconnect, and I think Mike Pompeo obviously had a difficult time responding to Chairman Corker's comments about why is there this disconnect with a president who says what he says and yet what you say about U.S. policy. And right. I don't think Mike gave a very good answer on that one.
There was Politico reported on something today called a special collection service at your former employer over in Langley there, the CIA, where obviously that the U.S. government essentially has the ability to find out through perhaps taps of Russian officials, orders that are sent around who Putin briefed and things like that, that actually the CIA that Gina Haspel might actually have a better idea right now what happened in that meeting than Mike Pompeo. Is that how good your service, this sort of special collection service is at the CIA?
Well, there's not much question without going into classified information that there are.
I'm hoping to get you to lose your you'll lose your security clearance in this in this segment, sir.
That's right.
I'm teasing, yes. But go ahead and tell me about it.
You know, there's a lot of capabilities there, and obviously there's no question in my mind that the Russians probably did tape that conversation. Whether the Finns did it, whether other intelligence services did it, whether the CIA had any capability there, whether NSA did. Obviously, we don't know the answer to that.
Wow.
But there's not much question in my mind, knowing the intelligence people and how they think, that somebody will, has some kind of capability to know what went on in that room between President Trump and President Putin.
And obviously, without speculating, we don't know. But if it's something that's not what we're being told, that obviously would be explosive. Let me ask you to comment on something a former, it would be successor of yours, said. John Brennan said this at the Helsinki press conference. Donald Trump's press conference performance in Helsinki rises to and exceeds the threshold of, quote, high crimes and misdemeanors. It was nothing short of treasonous. Not only were Trump's comments imbecilic, he is wholly in the pocket of Putin. Republican patriots, where are you? I know you and John Brennan don't use the same colorful language all the time. But do you agree with his sentiment there?
I'm careful, I guess, as a lawyer, to use that kind of word without knowing whether or not you could prove that to be the case. And I have some question whether or not the President of the United States betrayed this country and deliberately tried to betray it. I think the bigger issue is
you
whether
think that happened
not,
on that stage? You're saying the president. Did you feel like the president betrayed the country on that stage, sharing that stage with Putin and saying what he said about the intel community?
I think the president made a comment. He then came back to this country and betrayed that, or tried to correct the comment that he made. I think it's difficult to kind of nail down that kind of charge against the president of the United States. I think, on the other hand, the real issue is whether or not the president, as president of the United States, exercised his responsibility correctly as president in dealing with Russia and in dealing with the issues that were involved in that discussion. I think that is an area that can very well be questioned and has been questioned, not only by Democratic senators, but by Republican senators. I think that's what we ought to focus on.
All right, so one more, and then we're going to get started. Chase is en route, and so we do need to get rolling on the OT. But there was one more I thought I wanted to check from, I think from Pompeo. Let me see if it's in there. Herpa-derpa-derp-derp-derp, bop. Oh, interesting. Do have a hot off the encoder clip of Fox's coverage of the CNN reporter getting kicked out. Oh, that's interesting. All right, let's give it a go. Let's see what he's got.
CNN says one of its reporters was stopped from covering the president's trade announcement late this afternoon in the Rose Garden, and CNN has just issued a statement. Quote, today, CNN White House correspondent Caitlin Collins was denied access to cover an open press event at the White House after posing questions to President Trump earlier in the day. As the network pool reporter, Collins was told by White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Communications Bill Shine and Press Secretary Sarah Sanders that her questions were inappropriate. Oh. They were not. Just because the White House is uncomfortable with a question regarding the news of the day doesn't mean the question isn't relevant and shouldn't be asked. This decision to bar a member of the press is retaliatory in nature and not indicative of an open and free press. We demand better. As a member of the White House press pool, Fox stands firmly with CNN on this issue of access. So far, no response from the White House.
Pow! Fox News standing with CNN right there. You heard it hot off the old encodes. That is not shocking, but honestly a little surprising. It is a little bit surprising. I guess, yeah. All right, one more Pompeo, and then we're going to get started. I'm sorry.
Amount of money from former Soviet states and Russia into Trump projects.
This is Senator Tom Udall from New Mexico, and he's questioning Pompeo about Trump's business ties in Russia. This will be our last clip, and then we'll start the overtime.
Trump International Tower and Hotel in Toronto, the Trump Hotel in Panama, the Trump project in Soho and New York City are a few of the big examples here. And here's another one. A Russian oligarch bought a property from President Trump for candidate Trump at the time, or maybe a little before, for $95 million in 2008. Less than 4 years after President Trump paid $41 million, so he more than doubled this money. Donald Trump Jr. in 2008 stated at a real estate conference in New York, and I quote here, "Russians make up a pretty disproportionate cross-section of a lot of our assets," end quote. Donald Trump tried to build a Trump Tower in Moscow for 30 years. He even tweeted in 2013, "Trump Tower Moscow is next," that's in quotes. In 2015, answering a question from indicted Russian operative and alleged spy Maria Butina, candidate Trump made clear his desires with Russia, stating, "I would get along well with Putin and that I don't think we need the sanctions." Now, the Russian ambassador to the United States has said the president made, and this is his quote, "important verbal agreements with President Putin." And he seems to know more about Helsinki and what happened there than the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. As we saw in Helsinki and throughout his presidency and the campaign, this president is extremely sympathetic to the very Russian government that attacked and continues to attack our democracy and those of our allies. It's a fact of political life today that many Americans are concerned about the unthinkable that a U.S. president could have a compromising relationship with a foreign power. The president could clear this all up in 3 simple ways: releasing his tax returns and those of the Trump Organization and the taxes from the various family businesses, some of which we don't even know about. After Helsinki, do you think that the American people deserve to know what's in President Trump's tax returns and business interests that are intertwined with Russia?
Senator, I'm going to try to stay out of the same political circus that you and I ended up in last time I was sitting here, and simply respond by saying this same president with which you seem to express such deep concern is engaged in a massive defense buildup, which threatens Vladimir Putin's regime. He instructed us to put together a nuclear posture review that has set Vladimir Putin on his ear because of its robustness and the recapitalization of our nuclear program. He's kicked out 60 spies. We banned Kaspersky.
Yeah,
we put $11 billion in the European Defense
Mr. Secretary,
Initiative.
you've already
No, Senator,
said
actually,
that.
I haven't even begun to scratch the
No,
surface.
but you haven't answered my question, so let me try it a little different way. Wouldn't you want to know, as Secretary of State, I mean, I'm taking you in your sincerity here as Secretary of State, whether all these Russian financial interests, oligarchs, and others are part of the decision-making of the president. I mean, wouldn't you want that out in the open and to understand what went on at Helsinki? It's an easy kind of yes or no question.
Senator, I don't need secondhand understandings of what President Trump is instructing his administration to do to push back against Russia. I have firsthand understandings and directives.
Well, let me ask the question a little bit
We've opposed Nord Stream 2. We've got a 4x30 out of NATO that also is a big setback for Russia. I mean, I'm happy to continue the list. I'm happy to cease there, but I will submit the entirety of this administration's actions against Russia for the record, if I might.
Please do.
We'll back a truck up and get it on in here.
Yeah, candidate Trump has failed to keep his promise to disclose his tax returns. Every presidential candidate since Richard Nixon has disclosed. Jimmy Carter even sold his peanut farm to avoid a conflict of interest. The situation with President Trump's potential foreign policy conflicts of interest is unprecedented and unacceptable. And under the emoluments clause, I think it's unconstitutional as well. But let me just ask a couple of questions about Helsinki. You talked about what you were tasked with. The Director of National Intelligence, Cohen, stated that at the Aspen Security Forum that he did not know what happened during the one-on-one meeting in Helsinki. Did the President personally debrief you on this conversation? And are you 100% confident that you
All right, so I think we have some business to attend to. I believe there's a little overtime. Let's see, man. I gotta get my chair. There we go. Hold on. I gotta get my chair just adjusted, just right. You know, gotta get Kumskis. Okay. Episode 288, overtime time. Ooh, gosh, that's crazy. All right, intro's ready. Oh, Nancy is armed. Full screen mode enabled. Only one more thing to do, and that's hit record in multiple locations. Location number 1. Deployed. Location number 2. Deploying in 5, 4, 3, 2. Don't skip to that next podcast. The Unfilter show's not over yet. In fact, there might be just the best bits left in overtime!
And I know that each of you understand you have the power. Stay woke!
Thank you. I do try, mostly through the aid of caffeine. But thank you to our one new patron this week. Yeah, that's right! Paul. It's Paul. Thank you, Paul. You're our new patron this week over at patreon.com/unfilter. Thank you very much to you and all of our patrons out there who are reclaiming their time, of course, and staying woke.
Reclaiming my time.
Now we have a lot of overtime this week. So let's start with a traditional. Let's start with the Oh Nancy segment. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I'm not here to make fun of Nancy Pelosi. I'm just here to document how screwed the internal structure of the establishment Democratic Party is and why they will continue to lose core audiences. I don't know if I can say continue to lose votes in elections. I can definitely say continue to lose core audiences, though. And that's why when you see a good sign coming, you have to wonder what's really going on. There's something in the wind.
Blue wave this November. Got
blue
some good
wave.
news today from one of the country's top predictors. For the first time this cycle, this election season, the University of Virginia's political analyst Larry Sabato said Democrats are now favorites to win control of the U.S. House of Representatives this November. Sabato today shifted 17 races, in fact, in favor of the Democrats. And one of them is Ohio's 12th congressional district, an historically Republican bastion from Columbus's affluent northern suburbs to its eastern rural counties. Trump won that district in 2016 by 11 points. A special election is scheduled there in 2 weeks to fill a seat which is currently vacant. According to Sabato, the race is now a toss-up. A Democrat has not held that seat in the past 35 years, ever since the current Republican governor, John Kasich, won it back in '82.
I like that what's his face here? He gets labeled as having an angry mouth in the chat room, which is a pretty accurate description of his style of presentation. So, yeah, that's hardball. That's hardball for you. Yeah, so we're talking tough, and it's sounding good, and it's looking good for the Democrats. So it must be Nancy Pelosi. It must be smooth-talking Nancy Pelosi. Except for when I watch her in public, I can't help but get angry. So what is causing it? What is causing it? Because when I watch Nancy here, what I see is somebody who is peddling, somebody who's pandering, somebody who's talking down to an audience, somebody who had a strategy meeting with the establishment and said, one of the things that the right is getting is the religious vote. We've got to own the religious vote because religion really matters to a specific demo that we're trying to get a lot of. It's an expanding demo in the United States. You might say it's migrating north. And they're voting Democrat. And there's one thing that's extremely important to them, and that's religion. And Nancy Pelosi and her buddy Chuck Schumer and the others, they recognized that a while ago because they're pretty hip to what's going on in the mind of the people they poll. Well, the people they have polled. And that's you have to be religious. So Nancy's been working on that. We've been covering that on this show for a while now. She's been working on it, and she's trying to really kind of get it into any kind of public community event where she's with blue-collar people, and she needs to appeal to the average working man. So she'll start busting out her faith. And it's just sloppy, and it's just arrogant, and it's just fragrant.
America's letter carriers are the lifeblood of the American economy.
So if you couldn't understand a word she just said... Yeah, I know. I don't blame you. America's letter carriers. America's letter carriers. You see, she's at a postal event. Those are postal workers around her.
I just want to tell you this one thing, because I'm a person of faith, and I see everything in terms of
money. You see everything in terms of money?
Person of faith, and I see everything in terms of my religion.
My faith is the word you're looking for.
And this is how you come into that picture. When those of you who may be Catholic and go to church, you see St. Paul to the Corinthians, St. Paul to the Ephesians, St. Paul to the this and to that. It was the letters of St. Paul that spread Christianity. Again, if the Romans had not built roads, there would not have been a mail system. But the mail system was the connection, the spread. So I feel deeply indebted to the tradition of mail carriers, to the spread of a faith that I hold dear.
Nobody in that audience was buying that. Not a single person. Not a single person was buying it. But I'm wondering if you're buying what John Kerry is selling. And that's that the Obama administration did everything right when it came to Russian meddling.
We traveled to Martha's Vineyard this week to talk with former Secretary of State John Kerry about his new book, Every Day is Extra. We also asked him about President Trump's performance in Helsinki.
I found it shocking. I found it to be one of the most disgraceful, remarkable, moments of kowtowing to a foreign leader by an American president that anyone has ever witnessed. And it wasn't just that it was a kind of surrender, it's that it is dangerous. The president stood there and did not defend our country. He stood there and did not defend the truth. He did not defend the facts. And the danger, here's why it's dangerous, because it sends a message to President Putin and to the rest of the world that the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, really doesn't have a handle on what he's doing, and that he doesn't, know either what the facts are or he won't accept the facts.
So you don't buy his walk back of
I don't buy his walk back 1 second. And by the way, how can anyone buy walk back after walk back when you take positions here and then you take positions over here and you're repetitively walking back and changing? We are at a point where after the documented untruths of this president, documented by many, many different media sources, that there's no credibility. You don't know whether to believe or not to believe. That's the worst situation you could have for a president of the United States in a dangerous world.
President Trump frequently points out that this election meddling happened on President Obama's watch. You were in the administration at the time. We heard President Obama publicly condemn Russia for doing that, but we never saw him publicly confront Vladimir Putin either.
Because it was just unfolding. We discovered this in the late summer. I remember the secretary being at a meeting where it was disclosed to us by our intel community. I think it was August, if I
just unfolding,
recall correctly. And so you're in the last moments of the presidential campaign, and President is already being accused of, engaging in trickery and in addition, President Trump.
Not Hillary, though. Not Hillary with the super delegates and buying everybody out and the DNC strong-arming out Bernie. No trickery there.
Had been already publicly talking about the election being fixed and the process being phony and so forth. So it was essential for the president to put the people with the greatest credibility out front. And he did. The intel community went out. The director of national intelligence, the CIA, they framed the discussion so that President Trump couldn't, so then candidate Trump couldn't say it's rigged. It's rigged. You look, this is a game for Hillary.
Since when do they have credibility? See, that's the part I don't understand where that came from. Where did that credibility come from? The spies who run their own budgets, who don't answer to anybody, who run militarized programs that don't have to be reported to the public. Since when do they ever be the source of all truth for our entire country? It's very strange. It's very strange. Speaking of weird stories, remember that poisoning, that Russian poisoning? Well, now we may have the Russians behind it, of course.
Well, it's important to point out that not only would these individuals they've identified be responsible for the attempted assassination of Sergei Skripal and his daughter, but also for the murder of Dawn Sturgis, who died 3 weeks ago. She came across this bottle of Novichok, which had been discarded.
This was that person that just recently died. Now, we now have the official explanation of how she died. And it was very strange. She was just randomly coming across this extremely dangerous poison in the trash after they had surveilled the entire area and locked it all up, and poison control, whatever it's called, went through there in their suits, and the whole block was shut down, and they had a guard full-time at the door. Like, they went through that place, and yet somehow this lady ends up in there going through the trash, and I won't ruin how she got poisoned, but I got to tell you, it feels like something my 5-year-old daughter would have made up.
Dawn Sturgis, who died 3 weeks ago. She came across this bottle of Novichok, which had been discarded, thought it was perfume, is believed to have sprayed it on herself, and died as a result.
Oh, look at this weird-looking bottle discarded in the garbage, in the trash can. It must be perfume. I will pick it up out of the garbage, and I will spray it on myself. Are we really going with that? Like, okay, all right. That's a remarkable story, though. Like, that's, okay. I guess that's all it takes over there. That's your level of propaganda.
The murder of Dawn Sturgis, who died 3 weeks ago. She came across this bottle of Novichok, which had been discarded, thought it was perfume, is believed to have sprayed it on herself, and died as a result. But according to these sources, authorities have now ID'd several suspects.
She's dead, so they can make up any story they want. They can make up any story they want.
2 in particular who they believe could have been part of this hit squad. There are no pictures yet, no names, but police, working with national security services, are believed to have combed through hours and hours of CCTV footage. Skripal, a former colonel in Russian military intelligence who betrayed dozens of agents to Britain's MI6 foreign spy service, and his daughter Yulia were found unconscious on March the 4th. Most believe it was revenge by the Russians.
The attack on Skripal, I believe, was basically mostly internal.
We can stop there. We know that story. So we have potential Russian suspect. Oh, okay, let me see. I guess they didn't actually give you the details on that. I just can't stand that guy they interview there.
Arrived shortly before the attack on Skripal and left shortly after. They believe that these potential assassins were using aliases, and they've tracked them to a manifest on a passenger plane, but they do not know who they are because they're not on any previous British list. It's worth saying also that the security minister in the UK, Ben Wallace, has tweeted recently saying this report is ill-informed and wild speculation. Never.
What? Well, then we've got nothing then. I'm glad I stuck with that. I like the refresher on the whole thing, though, and I love the new explanation as to how that third lady died. It wasn't some sort of accidental exposure. It was by whoever originally planted it. No, it was her coming across a bottle in the garbage and spraying herself in the face to smell good by something that's been thrown away. There's also something interesting happening in the big Russia probe that is being run by the Senate, I think, and I'll let you listen. Maybe you can help me interpret in the chat room, but it sounds like the investigation in the House is collapsing all down into one Russia investigation being led by people that were in the Senate in the original Senate investigation. It's kind of confusing, and it's not very clear in this clip, so let's parse it in the chat room.
Sources close to the discussions tell Fox News that lawmakers are now aware of new records after the recent closed-door depositions from FBI agent Peter Strzok and his former colleague and lover FBI lawyer Lisa Page.
I like how she runs that all together. FBI lover lawyer Lisa Page. So new records, quote-unquote, are now available after private testimony.
From FBI agent Peter Strzok and his former colleague and lover FBI lawyer Lisa Page. Lawmakers are now seeking records related to the controversial Trump dossier, an internal FBI file documenting Bureau efforts to verify the salacious allegations. Another set of records includes memos from Page's former boss, FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, that's said to document alleged obstruction related to the Russia case. The meeting today on Capitol Hill will include 4 Republican lawmakers, the chairman of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, Bob Goodlatte, Trey Gowdy, as well as Congressman Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows. Fox News has told the U.S. Attorney John Lausch, tasked by the Attorney General to handle congressional records requests, is also expected on Capitol Hill. Among the outstanding records, those documenting the alleged use of confidential human sources by the FBI in the earliest stages of the Russia case. It's important to note that these 2 committees.
All right, now here's the part that I want us to listen to pretty carefully.
In the earliest stages of the Russia case. It's important to note that these 2 committees, Judiciary and Oversight, now have primary jurisdiction on the Russia case. So in layman's terms, they're in the lead, Julie, with House Intel now referring the dozens of witnesses they discovered through their investigation over to those committees for future interviews.
Okay, so I kind of read that as the shit show that was in the House is now essentially handing over their resources and their assets.
They discovered through their investigation over to those committees the dozens of witnesses they turned.
I'm going to go back a little bit more. Sorry to make it confusing, but I want to hear it again.
Of the Russia case. It's important to note that these 2 committees, Judiciary and Oversight, now have primary jurisdiction on the Russia case. So in layman's terms, they're in the lead, Julie, with House Intel now referring the dozens of witnesses they discovered through their investigation over to those committees for future interviews.
All right, do you have an interpretation of what it is she just said, chat room? Because that's a little thick, but it does sound like maybe my original interpretation might be right. I don't know. She's a robot? Yeah. They're going from the panel to a bunch of committees who have no further power. Yeah, that's another way to read that. You're right. Yeah. Okay, so there is a great moment with Sarah Sanders where she explains why Trump may be pulling that security clearance on those former Obama officials.
So the president is threatening to punish Brennan and Comey and Clapper for saying things about him that he doesn't like. Is that presidential?
The president is exploring these mechanisms to remove security clearance because they've politicized and in some cases actually monetized their public service and their security clearances, and making baseless accusations of improper contact with Russia or being influenced by Russia against the president is extremely inappropriate. The president contends that the fact that people with security clearances are making these baseless charges provides inappropriate legitimacy to accusations with zero evidence. So when we have further updates on that front, I'll certainly let you know.
Damn, girl had a red statement ready. I mean, like, boom, here's a statement, you read this. Ready to go.
He doesn't like, and he wants to punish them for it.
No, I think you are creating your own story there. The president doesn't like the fact that people are politicizing agencies and departments that are specifically meant to not be political and not meant to be monetized off of security clearances.
Sarah, on a separate question, actually, but to follow up on that, isn't the president doing exactly what you just said the president doesn't want all these people doing? Politicizing matters of national security by going after his political enemies?
No, the president's not making baseless accusations of improper contact with a foreign government and accusing the president of the United States of treasonous activity when you have the highest level of security clearance, when you're the person that holds the nation's deepest, most sacred secrets at your hands, and you go out and you make false accusations against the president of the United States. He thinks that is something to be very concerned with, and
it does seem like it's been unprecedented. I know I've said it before, but it just seems like, when have we ever seen that? When have we ever seen that? And that was Rand's take.
In all, 6 officials who once held high-ranking posts at the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and the State Department, a privilege that the president says they have chosen to exploit.
Yeah, why, Susan Rice, what's she doing? Who's she consulting with?
Moments ago. Senator, good to see you tonight. Thank you for being here. Tell me about your conversation with the president about this.
Well, I told the president in private what I've been saying in public, that I think there's a great danger to having talking heads on TV who are ex-CIA agents and still have classified clearance. There's a real danger that they might inadvertently reveal classified information. And, John Brennan's got a history of this. Back in 2012, when we were discussing, we discovered the underwear bomber. John Brennan at that time briefed ex-CIA agents who were retired but still had top secret clearance. He briefed them and said, oh, don't worry, the U.S. has someone inside. We have inside control. Well, then one of these ex-CIA agents went on television and said, oh, yeah, we have a double agent and nobody needs to worry. And it's like, whoops, the double agent was still there. So John Brennan's already been involved when he was on the inside, leaking information to people who still had top secret clearance, who were now talking heads. John Brennan leaked information that almost cost the life of a double agent. This is 4 years ago now. He should have been fired for that, but he wasn't fired by President Obama because I think he was a partisan. But now he's a talking head on the outside, saying that basically President Trump should be executed. That's what we do for treason. And so, yeah, I'm very concerned about him having privileges because of his past history, but I would make it more universal. I don't think that ex-CIA agents of any stripe who are now talking heads should continue to get classified information. I think it's wrong.
Yeah, so I guess that's, the main difference in what you're saying. So you're suggesting that this should be a blanket treatment for all. So, some people are pointing to, for example, Mike Flynn, who had security clearance and, chanted lock her up during the campaign. So you're talking about a blank. Is that what the president is talking about here? Because his critics are saying that what he wants to do is create an enemies list and that he wants to shut these people up. Here's Senator Hirano. Let me just show you what she tweeted out. She said, this is what totalitarianism looks like. So why is she not wrong?
I think that's a little bit overwrought. No one's talking about limiting anyone's speech. So an ex-CIA agent can get out there and say incredibly stupid things like the president is treasonous. Yes, no one's going to stop John Brennan from saying that. No one stops him from taking millions of dollars to say such horrendous things. But should he still get classified information? I mean, I would think that, you know, if you're a soldier or you're the head of the CIA, basically you have allegiance to the commander-in-chief. The commander-in-chief makes decisions. If you don't like them, you can resign, but he's no longer in government. He should not be getting classified information. He also has a history of leaking classified information that endangered agents in the field and almost got an agent killed.
All right, so you're referring to John Brennan, and that's what you referred to originally.
No.
Hey, think about their money stream, though. If you take away their security clearance, they're not nearly as valuable. Gosh, come on, Rand. Come on, Rand. Also, what about getting them Russians over here to interview some U.S. intel, maybe an ambassador? Any word on that? Any word?
Thanks, Elliot. I want to start with some stuff that comes out of Helsinki. I'll be really quick because I think there'll probably be a lot about it. I wanted to ask you a broad question first, but since this question came up at the White House briefing just now, and your colleague over there gave a rather unusual answer to when she was asked about whether or not the administration would support or would help Russian investigators interview former American officials or American citizens in general, but also former American officials, including a former ambassador to Russia. She said that this is something the president was going to take under advisement to talk about with his team. Why is this just not simply is this just not a non-starter to begin with?
Well,
why are you even considering it?
I can't answer on behalf of the White House with regard to that, but what I can tell you is that the overall assertions that have come out of the Russian government are absolutely absurd. The fact that they want to question 11 American citizens and the assertions that the Russian government is making about those American citizens, we do not stand by those assertions that the Russian government makes. The prosecutor general in Russia is well aware that the United States has rejected Russian allegations in this regard. Those have been refuted by, among other things, the Southern District Court of New York in other cases that are somewhat related. Instead, we continue to urge Russian authorities to work with the U.S. Department of Justice to pursue those in Russia who, in fact, perpetrated the fraudulent scheme that Russia refers to. That targeted not only Mr. Browder, but also his company and others, and also the Russian people as a whole.
So does that mean that, that at least speaking for the State Department, that you would object to, oppose, and not allow or not grant a Russian request or demand to interview a former ambassador, someone who used to work for this building?
And I believe some of that would fall under the Department of Justice. So I'd have to loop in the Department of Justice on this. This is something that just came out. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to see the entire White House briefing a short while ago, so I will just tell you that Russian assertions are absolutely absurd at this point.
Well, I get that, but I mean, is this something that's just out of the question that you're not going to allow? Because her response has frankly caused a great deal of concern, not just among members of the previous administration, but among
Matt,
former officials going
what
back.
I provided you right now is all that I have for you on this,
Matt.
but I will be sure to look into it and understand that it would be a grave concern to our former colleagues here.
That's interesting, that exchange. I like that. All right, you know about Sebastian Gorka, your good buddy? He's a war hawk. He would like to see us do more war. And he seems to be a bit of a drunk, a bit of a hothead, and he says that Trump understands how fragile Iran is, and has a couple other interesting insights, so let's tolerate him for a bit.
In what could be a step in fulfilling a commitment made by Kim Jong-un to President Trump 6 weeks ago at their historic summit, new satellite images appear to show North Korea dismantling its main missile testing site. So is this a true sign of progress on denuking the country? Here to weigh in, Fox News national security strategist and former deputy assistant to the president, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Sebastian, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
Okay, so what do you make of the fact that it looks like they're pulling the plug on that facility?
Well, if the reports are true, if the satellite images are being interpreted correctly, it's very significant because these actions apparently occurred in the last 2 weeks. So this is post the Singapore summit. This had to be a tangible decision by Kim, the Politburo, the upper echelons of the North Korean regime, which would be part of the concrete follow-up to that meeting with the president. I think, you know, one of the biggest things that has happened since Singapore is the cancellation of the annual anti-American parade by Pyongyang, because that's a very public thing. I mean, the people have expectations for that ideology-laden event. The government publicly stopped it. They suspended that parade. But this is the brass tacks. This is the real deal when it comes to North Korea's capability to launch ballistic missiles.
I would imagine the President of the United States is frustrated that the pace of the denuking is so slow. And so that's why yesterday when the news was maybe they're pulling the plug on that site, maybe this is a good faith effort on their part to show that they are doing something.
Yeah, I've used the phrase often with regards to the president and his team that he moves at the speed of Trump. That he does things with an alacrity, with a speed that we are just not used to here in the swamp. You look at the last year and a half, the things that he has achieved in just a year and a half, most presidents would be happy with after 8 years in office. But yes, I think as a businessman who's results-oriented, he's probably a little frustrated. But in terms of international deals on arms control, this is pretty fast, actually, Steve.
Well, what do you make of the president yesterday in Kansas City at the VFW convention when talking about Iran now? He said, you know, that country is no longer what it used to be, and now we're ready to make a deal, not like the last deal the last administration did, but a real deal. What's he saying there? Are we getting closer? Did that Twitter tirade actually work? First coming from the Iranians and then going back toward the president?
I've always said that's how you talk to dictatorships. Dictatorships don't care about nice protocol language and fancy, you know, meetings in Geneva or Vienna. You hit them hard. You talk straight to them. I think the president was signaling in his great speech yesterday, he understands how fragile this regime is. The louder they bark, the weaker they are. You look at the demonstrations. The demonstrations in Iran now, unlike 2009 when we had the Green Revolution, they're not just centered around Tehran, they're all around the country. So Iran's in trouble and the president knows it, and maybe this is the time to squeeze them.
All right, let's see what happens.
There's a need for a rescue mission. When the world is threatened, when the world needs help, it calls on America.
Israel has evacuated hundreds of members of the controversial White Helmets group and their families to neighboring Jordan after Canada, Britain, and Germany reportedly agreed to accept at least some of them as refugees. That's after Syrian government forces launched an offensive against militants in the south of the country where members of the group were located.
Upon request of the US, Canada, and European states, Israel has completed a humanitarian effort to rescue members of a Syrian civil organization, the White Helmets, and families. They were evacuated from the war zone in southern Syria to a neighboring country.
Now, the IDF has called this, to quote, an exceptional humanitarian gesture. It has said that it carried out this evacuation at the request of the United States and several European countries, and that the request already came several weeks ago. Activists belonging to the White Helmets consider themselves rescuers who risk their lives to help save civilians. But the organization remains controversial, particularly over where its funding comes. Most of its funding is from the West, and as such, it is criticized as being an organization that promotes a Western interventionist agenda. For example, more than $32 million comes from the United States. It also receives funding from the Netherlands, from Denmark, Germany, Canada, and New Zealand.
So that's a big deal there. Those White Helmets getting evacuated by Israel, supposedly at the request of Trump. And some of them are getting stashed in Canada. Big talk over there. If we could talk a little more about Iran, if we want. Yeah, all right, let's play it. Let's do it.
Donald Trump has lashed out at Iran. He tweeted on Sunday that Tehran should not threaten the U.S. Otherwise, it will face serious consequences. And as relations between the countries continue to deteriorate, the U.S. now has Iran's media in its sights.
They're covertly plotting terrorist attacks in the heart of Europe. Destroying Israel is at the core of the regime's ideology, It has committed and supported many acts of violence and terrorism against both countries. Now the United States is undertaking a diplomatic and financial pressure campaign to cut off the funds that the regime uses to enrich itself and support death and destruction. The BBG is launching a new 24/7 Farsi language TV channel. It will expand not only television, but radio, digital, and social media format, so that the ordinary Iranians inside of Iran and around the globe can know that America stands with them.
Oh! So this is getting some pretty tough talk. You know, you got Trump on Twitter, you got Pompeo up there at the podium, and you got Lindsey Graham going on the media saying, we're going for full-fledged regime change.
Now, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee.
We're trying to develop a nuclear capability, and the question is, would they hit Riyadh and Saudi Arabia first or go to Jerusalem? The Arabs and the Israelis are now united against Iran. Mike Pompeo's speech was awesome. President Trump's tweet says there's a new sheriff in town. We're going to bring this regime down by helping the Iranian people. Regime change is the only way to save Mideast from just perpetual conflict.
So there we go. The only way to save them is to have more conflict. And we don't need to worry about any of the other regime change that we're doing. We can just go ahead and start yet another project. Let's do it.
Regime change is the only way to save Mideast from just perpetual conflict. This regime needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do that, though? And you know, what about, you said Maria was wrong in everything she said, but what do you think about the fact that sometimes this kind of talk can embolden the hardliners? What's your response to that?
There are no moderates. Nobody is running Iran except the Ayatollah. If you want to run for office, you have to get his permission. They knock everybody off the ballot that they don't like. So they're.
You ought to do yourself a little favor if you're interested in this war that's building towards Iran. And boy, is it going to be a big one. And the reason why I say that is I've been watching this buildup now for a really long time, like this really calculated buildup, the kind that we take when it's a serious threat. And the interesting thing about the Ayatollah is the reason they're in power results from a regime change that we originally pulled off in the 50s in Iran. So our original meddling in their government is what has led to the current regime's power. And now we think the only solution is to throw that regime, just like we did in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Libya and all of the other places like we're aiding to suppress in Yemen. It is a mess all over there. And Lindsey Graham's logic is, this'll tidy it up. This'll make it clean. This is what we have to do, is regime change in Iran.
Says there's a new sheriff in town. We're going to bring this regime down by helping the Iranian people. Regime change is the only way to save Mideast from just perpetual conflict.
Now, that's exactly what we tried to do in Syria. We tried to help the Syrian people in their, quote, civil war. It was a civil war brought to you by the United States of America and its allies. Syrian Civil War, sponsored by NATO. It's a scam if you're influencing a civil war. That, by definition, is not a civil war. You see, that's the thing. That's the thing, Lindsey Graham, is by definition that doesn't count. And it didn't work in Syria, and Iran is much more powerful than Syria.
Sheriff in town. We're going to bring this regime down by helping the Iranian people. Regime change is the only way to save Mideast from just perpetual conflict. This regime needs to go.
This regime needs to go. You see, you didn't know. You didn't know, but now you do know. You're welcome. Lindsey Graham, everybody. This regime needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do that, though? And you know, what about, you said Maria was wrong in everything she said, but what do you think about the fact that sometimes this kind of talk can embolden the hardliners? What's your response to that?
There are no moderates. Nobody is running Iran except the Ayatollah. If you want to run for office, you have to get his permission. They knock everybody off the ballot that they don't like. So there are no moderates in Iran. Break their back economically, impose sanctions on their oil, drive them out of Syria. Don't cut a deal with Russia to give them Syria. Stand up to them throughout the entire Mideast. Help Israel deal with the Iranian Hezbollah threat. Break their economy. Stand with the Iranian people. Get information into Iran that will drive the Iranian regime crazy. We're on the verge of history here with Iran, and I want to compliment President Trump and Mike Pompeo. We're about to pull off something very big.
Fascinating.
Interesting that Mike Pompeo gets a couple of exceptional shout-outs there. Wonder why that is, guys. All right, that was a little heavy, wasn't it? Going to war with Iran, it's a little heavy. It's gonna be possibly triggering World War III. So let's shake it off with Nancy Pelosi getting triggered every time she tries to say the word Constitution. Huh? This will make you feel better.
Our oath to protect and defend our country from all and our Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and our Constitution to stand up to Putin for his attacks as the danger this president is putting forth. And now with that, I'm pleased to yield to the distinguished ranking member on the Intelligence Committee. That was about economy in in Europe, the urgency of us acting in a bipartisan way to say to the president, John McCain,
we may need some faith healers.
The whole thing is worth it for that last moment there. All right, so let's end the overtime on a clip that clearly demonstrates to the American people who's in charge here. This is after that whole hoopla around Trump throwing the intelligence agencies under the bus and saying that he believes Putin. He then had to pledge allegiance to the intelligence agencies in the White House. And as he's pledging allegiance, I'm setting it up for you audio listeners because the visual of it's a beauty. As Trump is reading his prepared statement of apology to the intelligence agencies, the lights go out, and then there's an awkward moment where everybody realizes what may have just happened. I'm going to play it just so you can see it. You can tell me who's really in charge.
My meeting with President Putin was really interesting in so many different ways because we haven't had relationships with Russia for a long time. And we started. Let me begin by saying that, once again, the full faith and support for America's intelligence agencies. I have a full faith in our intelligence agencies. Whoops, they just turned off the light. That must be the intelligence agencies. There it goes. Okay. You guys okay? Good. That was strange, but that's okay.
Oh my God. Oh, that's one that's worth having in your collection if you got the supporters thing. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.
That was strange, but that's okay. But that's okay.
Jeremy, you do not seem as impressed by that moment as I was. I thought that was actually pretty great. You guys seem just like, whatevs. Okay, Chris. Okay, let's watch it again.
President Putin was really interesting in so many different ways because we haven't had relationships with Russia for a long time. And we started. Let me begin by saying that, once again, the full faith and support for America's intelligence agencies. I have a full faith in our intelligence agencies.
Like, come on. That's crazy.
Whoops, they just turned off the light. That must be the intelligence agencies. There it goes. Okay. You guys okay? Good. That was strange, but that's okay.
Oh, I love that. That's a nice moment there, actually. It's weird, yeah, it dimmed down and then back up too. That's the weird part. I don't know what's up with that. Okay, so I got a few bony clips just for those of you guys watching live. And it's been a long live stream so far. Mr. Chase is en route, though. He's making pretty good time, considering it's freaking Seattle. And let's see. I wanted to play for you a great moment with Pompeo that was outrageous. So let's get to that. Also, there's some FISA document stuff. Let's do that. Let's start with the FISA stuff, and then we'll build our way up to some of this stuff. Okay.
The White House confirming that for now, President Trump will not declassify the Carter Page FISA documents, despite increasing calls from Republicans.
So where do we go from here? Tom Fitton is the president of Judicial Watch, the watchdog group that sued for the release of these documents. And he joins us now. So much of this is classified, Tom, and critics will say the president won't declassify the rest because there's nothing to gain. What do you say?
Oh, I think we should understand the reason we have access to this information that came out that detailed the abuse of the FISA process to target the Trump team is because the president earlier this year made a decision to declassify materials already in the so-called Nunes memo, where he talked about the use of the Clinton DNC dossier, the use of articles placed by the Clinton DNC dossier team at Fusion GPS to bolster the warrant, and other things like that. And when he declassified that, that allowed the FOIA process to work that resulted in this release today. So what he should do is take another look at what other materials in these warrant applications, which according to those who have read them completely over in the Intelligence Committee, Bob Goodlatte, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, also show that there was no good reason to have a FISA warrant. And he should take a look at that, declassify it, and let the FOIA process work from there so he can exercise his prerogatives as president and let the FOIA process work and get some accountability and disclosures to the American people.
Well, as you know, the House Intel had asked President Trump to declassify the documents, saying, quote, "We respectfully request that you declassify and release publicly and in unredacted form pages 10 to 12 and 17 to 34, along with all associated footnotes of the third renewal of the FISA application on Mr. Page." Tom, what do you think it's going to take to make that happen?
He's going to have to intervene. I mean, Rod Rosenstein signed that renewal, so he's being asked to release information that may reflect poorly on him. And I don't think he can be. He'd have to take himself out of the decision-making as to whether that material is released. The president should step in like he did last time, that resulted in the release of this partial disclosure. And there's more information to be gotten. You know, we plan to file a motion today with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to get access to any hearing transcripts of any hearings that took place about the Carter Page warrant applications. That we asked the Justice Department for any transcripts. They said they don't have them. So we're going to ask the court to see if they have them. We need transparency. This abuse during the presidential campaign of the Justice Department and the FBI's awesome powers to spy on someone in secret needs to be exposed fully so we get some accountability and we have a way of making sure it doesn't happen again.
Well, Tom, Republicans say that it's all about this dossier, that this was used almost exclusively to get this warrant. The Democrats are saying it's just part of it. Who's right here? Can you determine anything from this highly redacted 400 pages?
Well, there are 4 sets of documents. It looks like the dossier was the key element of the push to get access, to get the courts to approve this. And even worse, reports about the dossier were also used. And then the State Department information, which supposedly came from people associated with creating the dossier out of the Clinton camp, was used. It's like the FBI and DOJ under President Obama went to the courts and said, you know, I heard about it from me, myself, and I. You got 3 sources. No, it was the same source. And really, they gamed the courts to get this spy warrant on the Trump team. And what strikes me about what's been released, guys, is that the focus was on the Trump campaign, and it looked like Carter Page was the vehicle to get at it. That was the goal here. And just quickly, Peter Strzok has the #2 in the FBI Counterintelligence Division. This is his warrant as much as anyone else's over there. And knowing what we know about his bias, it's all the more reason to uncover the full truth and get out the full corruption here. Because as what we know already shows corruption, and which may be reason for the president to declassify more to figure out what else went on.
Tom Fitton, thank you. We appreciate it.
So that guy is involved there with that judicial wash, where they watch the judicials. So we'll cover more of that in a moment. I also have some really fresh news that's coming in. So since we have a little time with Chase in transit, I'm also inbounding some clips that just imported 30 minutes ago. So that's going to be some fresh stuff we'll review here in just a moment as it sinks down. So in the meantime, let's continue on.
Well, the 4 judges who approved the Carter Page FISA warrants were all nominated by Republican presidents. And Republican Senator Marco Rubio says there was a reason he believes to keep an eye on Page.
Yeah, I have a different view on this issue than the president and the White House. They did not spy on the campaign from anything and everything that I have seen. We have a guy here who's always in Russia, brags about Russia, and we have reason to believe, and they list those reasons why this is someone we should be watching, and they follow the legal process by which to do so.
All right, let's bring in Congressman Matt Gaetz, a Florida Republican, another Florida Republican. Do you agree with your counterpart there on the Senate side, Marco Rubio?
Well, I admire Marco Rubio a great deal. Used to work for him, but I take a different view for a few reasons. First, if Carter Page was truly engaging in these activities for years, why was there not surveillance of Carter Page for years? Obviously, this was a consequence of his involvement with the Trump campaign and the desire to collect surveillance on the Trump campaign. Second major problem, the government leads with the dossier. I'm a litigator. Every litigator knows you lead with your best evidence. But for the dossier, there never would have been the authority to spy on someone that's close to the campaign. Third major problem are the omissions. You never see the Hillary Clinton campaign or the DNC even mentioned when it comes to their relationship to paying for this dossier. You also don't see that Nellie Orr, the wife of Bruce Orr, a senior Justice Department official, was working on this, and then Bruce Orr was the person who valeted the political information into the intelligence spectrum. So for those 3 reasons, I would take a different view from my mentor, my good friend Marco Rubio.
I would say this weekend when the FISA stuff went public, I immediately was trying to read it myself, and my Twitter feed was split down the middle. On the left, they were claiming victory. On the right, they were claiming victory. Each side saying what they read there proved their points. I want to play a little bit more of what Congressman Schiff, the ranking member on House Intel on the Democrats, what he had to say tonight. Give you a chance to respond.
This is a false, patently false, provably false statement, but not just by Nunes. Others signed off on it, too, like Trey Gowdy, and indeed the entire majority signed off on that Nunes memoranda.
Patently false statements by you and others.
Yeah, look, this FISA application has become like an ink blot test where Republicans and Democrats both look at it and see what they want to see. Let's start with an area where we should have broad bipartisan agreement. If a political party or a political candidate pays for opposition research, and that opposition research before a secret court with no adversarial attorney on the other side is the basis to go spy on someone, regardless of who it comes from, I think that should be disclosed. I think we should know that. And this vague reference to the fact that Christopher Steele didn't like Donald Trump is not sufficient to show the Democratic Party's involvement. So I think that is an area where we should find broad agreement. Now, Adam Schiff himself introduced legislation to have more transparency in the FISA court. He did that when Barack Obama was president. I introduced that exact same legislation in this Congress, and Adam Schiff won't even co-sponsor his own bill. It shows the extent to which there's far too much partisanship in how people are evaluating the facts. And if Democrats or Republicans come up with good ideas, we ought to be able to work together so that we don't see this happen in the future.
Says the partisan. Just pointing out. All right, how about some fresh stuff that's just coming in right here? Just a few minutes came into the clip room.
The president tonight under pressure after his own tariffs igniting a trade war, other countries retaliating. It has many American farmers paying the price. You heard from many of them last night right here. Well, tonight the president with a new promise. Reaching out to the European Union, he called them a foe just a week ago, but late today calling a press conference outside the White House to say they will now work together. ABC's Terry Moran at the White House tonight.
Reeling under increasing pressure from American farmers, congressional Republicans, and nervous Wall Street investors, President Trump suddenly shed his trade warrior persona today and declared a truce with the European Union.
So we had a big day, very big. We met right here at the White House to launch a new phase in the relationship between the United States and the European Union.
Yes, that European Union. This is how the president described it just 10 days ago.
I think the European Union is a foe, what they do to us in trade.
Trump has imposed massive tariffs on steel and aluminum on the EU, Mexico, Canada, and China. And those countries swiftly retaliated by slapping sweeping penalties on an array of American products. Hardest hit, farmers, a crucial segment of the president's political base. Greg Hora has been raising hogs in Fort Dodge, Iowa for years.
We need the administration to come to these deals quickly and not have agriculture products like pork used as a retaliation tool in these trade negotiations.
In Pennsylvania, Richard Schlossberg grows soybeans.
I understand why he's trying to do it, but it's affecting farmers in a negative way.
So yesterday, a bailout. President Trump promising farmers a whopping $12 billion in emergency payments right before the midterm elections. Congressional Republicans who ran on free trade and budget discipline hated it.
And farmers don't want a dole. They want to trade. They don't want aid.
All that led to today's declaration. Tariffs remain in place for now, but the U.S. and EU will work together to open markets completely.
This is why we agreed today, first of all, to work together towards zero tariffs, zero non-tariff barriers, and zero subsidies on non-auto industrial goods.
Just 10 days ago, as Trump was calling Europe a foe, he was extolling his burgeoning friendship with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who said he wanted Trump to win in 2016.
President Putin, did you want President Trump to win the election?
Yes, I did, Putin said. When he returned from Helsinki, Trump invited Putin to the White House in the fall, but the response from the Kremlin decidedly cool. And today, the National Security Council announced there would be no meeting, blaming the Russia investigation, saying in a statement, the president believes that the next bilateral meeting with President Putin should take place after the Russia witch hunt is over. More than a week after Helsinki, it's still unclear what Putin...
All right, they don't need to be spoiling too much. All right, they're going into way too much detail there because, you know, fresh clip. Let's do another one. Let's get into Mike Pompeo. I've been wanting to play this for you for a bit. I liked this one a lot. This is these two getting heated up.
Secretary, you know what happened during the president's
Mendez
2+ hour conversation with President Putin. And I really don't know much more about the summit after sitting here for 3 hours than I did before. I want to say to you, I want you to think about the suggestion that what the president says is not the policy of the United States. When the president speaks,
Can I clean that up, Senator? You're right. I misspoke.
If you want to clean it up, because
I'd love to.
when he speaks, that is the policy of the United States.
I'd love to, Senator.
I'd love
the
to.
chance to do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
He's
I
angry.
misspoke. It is the case. The president calls the ball. His statements are, in fact, policy. But it's the case that when all of us speak, in informal settings in response to questions, we're not covering the full gamut of things that impact the world. That's what I intended to say. I saw the glee on your side walking away trying to make a political point from that. That's silliness. This president runs this government. His statements are in fact U.S. policy.
So now we understand that when the president speaks, it is the policy of the United States.
Senator, you've seen these policies. 200+ sanctions. You've seen them, Senator.
I'm not asking you a question, Mr.
Senator,
Secretary.
I understand. I've now been here 3 hours. And you've got a political soliloquy.
No, you know what? I've listened to your political soliloquy as a Secretary of State sitting at that table, demeaning some members here because you said that Senator Shaheen believes more in the Russian Defense Ministry. She was quoting them only because we don't know what our own government is saying. So please don't talk to me about politics. Want to talk about politics? If President Obama did what President Trump did in Helsinki, I'd be peeling you off the Capitol ceiling, please. So here's the point. When the president speaks, it is the policy of the United States.
Wow. How about that, huh? How about that? They're getting a little upset, weren't they? They're getting a little upset there. Here's more coverage on that whole thing, which I just found to be not synced up yet. It's fresh clips, guys. It's fresh clips. Fresh clips. Fresh clips. Fresh clips. Here we go.
The Trump administration's foreign policy came under fire today on Capitol Hill. For the first time since President Trump met with leaders from North Korea and Russia, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was grilled at a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing. Nick Schifrin has the story.
2 months, 2 summits, 2 mysteries. What did the president promise in his meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin?
It's great to be with you.
And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Today, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo defended the administration. But before he could even begin, Republican Chairman Bob Corker, who's not running for re-election, unloaded on the nation's top diplomat.
You come before a group of senators today who are filled with serious doubts about this White House and its conduct of American foreign policy. In the summit's aftermath, we saw an American president who appeared submissive and deferential. From where we sit, it appears that in a ready, fire, aim fashion, the White House is waking up every morning and making it up as they go.
Pompeo began by trying to reassure senators on the administration's Russia policy, announcing what he called a new Crimea declaration. In 2014, Russian troops helped push through a Crimea referendum that led to its annexation, after the U.S. imposed sanctions and refused to recognize Crimea as part of Russia. Pompeo reiterated those policies.
I want to assure this committee that the United States does not and will not recognize the Kremlin's purported annexation of Crimea. There will be no relief of Crimea-related sanctions until Russia returns control of the Crimean Peninsula to Ukraine.
But Republican and Democratic senators expressed repeated concerns about last week's summit in Helsinki and what the president did and did not offer, led by ranking member New Jersey Democrat Bob Menendez.
Did he tell Putin that I'll release or ultimately relax sanctions?
Senator, what you need to conduct your role, your appropriate role, I will provide you today. And I can confirm to you that no commitment has been made to change those policies in any way. Senator, the President was very clear with Vladimir Putin about U.S. positions. They're the U.S. positions that are the Trump administration's positions, and he spoke about them very firmly and clearly when he met with Vladimir Putin.
And he told you that?
Senator, I'm telling you what he had a conversation with Vladimir Putin about, and I'm telling you what U.S. policy is today. I understand, Senator, I understand the game that you're playing.
With all due respect, I don't appreciate you characterizing my questions. My questions is to get to the truth. We don't know what the truth is. Let me ask you this. Did the president say they were going to change our force structure in Syria?
Senator, presidents are permitted to have conversations with their cabinet members that aren't repeated in public.
I don't know what happened in that meeting.
But last week, Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates, a cabinet member, admitted he hadn't gotten a readout. Today, Pompeo insisted the president was communicating with his staff and being tough on Russia.
Because there's a narrative that has developed that somehow President Trump is weak on Russia, and when in fact the converse is true.
Americans support the president's outreach to Russia. In a new PBS NewsHour NPR Marist poll, 59% of Americans think it's better for the U.S. to build a relationship with Russia. But they don't support the president's style. 64% of Americans believe President Trump has not been tough enough on Russia, including 47% of Republicans and 64% of independents. And 72% of Americans believe U.S. intelligence agencies' accusation that Russia interfered in 2016 over Russia's denials, including 63% of Republicans. Pompeo insisted the president agreed with U.S. intelligence agencies' assessment that Russia launched an influence campaign in the 2016 elections.
He has a complete and proper understanding of what happened. I know. I briefed him on it for over a year. This is perfectly clear to me personally. I am also certain he deeply respects the difficult and dangerous work that our patriots in the intelligence community do every single day.
In Congress, there's momentum for a new Russia sanctions package, and Pompeo came out in favor of a bill that would trigger automatic sanctions if the intelligence community concluded a foreign country meddled in U.S. elections.
There is a cost-benefit calculation that's undertaken before the Russians act. So it follows necessarily that putting on notice with essentially a fail-safe, if you will, about things that will follow has the likelihood of being successful in raising the cost in terms of how he calculates risk associated with a wide range of actions.
Earlier this month, Pompeo made at least his fourth trip to North Korea to try and convince Kim Jong-un to verifiably give up his nuclear weapons. U.S. intelligence believes North Korea is dismantling an engine testing site, but North Korea has not made any other public concessions, and Massachusetts Democrat Edward Markey worried the U.S. wasn't getting enough.
So I am afraid that at this point, the United States, the Trump administration, is being taken for a ride.
Fear not, Senator. We have no intention of allowing the UN sanctions, the world's sanctions, that we led the charge to have put in place, to allowing those sanctions to either be lifted or not enforced.
But even after 2 hours of testimony, Chairman Corker said he still had concerns, and he accused President Trump of purposely sowing discord in America's foreign policy.
I think you're a patriot. Tremendous faith in Mattis. But it's the president's actions that create tremendous distrust in our nation, among our allies. It's palpable. We meet and talk with them. Is there a strategy to this, or is it, what is it that causes the president to purposely create distrust in these institutions?
You notice they don't play his entire question because he fumbles the ball in that full question, and he ends up just sort of sputtering out and making no point.
Concern amongst senators on both sides of the aisle. And I was asking you if, in fact, there was some, some rhyme or reason that this type of distrust or discord will be created. And I know you're not going to answer the question, but I'm trying to make a point as to why.
I know you are.
Why the opening comments and the questions and just the energy behind this hearing are what they are. It's not about you, and it's not about Madison, and it's not what we're doing on the ground.
Senator, you went through a long litany of statements, but let me give you, first of all, I will tell you, I talk to the same allies you do. I speak to their foreign ministers directly. It is the case that they are behaving differently today. There's no doubt about that. They are now scrambling to figure out how to make sure that they are fully part of NATO. Some of that is a result of the statements that you referred to, Senator. Yeah. Some of that is identifying Nord Stream 2 as a problem.
I actually agree with that. I agree with that.
Right. These are the, well, there you go. I'll let the record reflect.
I'll say some of
these statements actually achieve important policy outcomes for the United States.
So he totally fizzles out and ends up saying he agrees with Pompeo. But see, that's the media, the way they clip that son of a bitch. Clip, 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 clip. They clip it down real nice and tight. So that way it looks like really, really big statements. Boom, powerful statements.
Drone technology has come a long way over the last decade. The unmanned aircraft are now being used for everything from making movies to delivering medical supplies in remote areas. But the technology has a dark side. In the wrong hands, drones could be used to spy on us, and have. They often threaten our very infrastructure and even target civilians.
In a Washington Post op-ed this month, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen warned of the dangers, writing in part, "Without congressional action, the U.S. government will remain unable to identify, track, and mitigate weaponized or dangerous drones in our skies." Here to discuss these concerns is Wired Magazine's editor-in-chief, Nicholas Thompson.
We need all sky surveillance all the time.
Good morning. We're not talking about military-grade drones here. We're talking about commercially available drones. How big a threat are they actually?
They are actually a pretty substantial threat. We have seen recreational drones being used to drop grenades on American soldiers in Mosul. We have seen them being used by drug dealers. We have seen them being used by gangs. On the other hand, they're also amazing, and they're great for our economy. So we need drones to come forward. We just need to make sure they don't blow us up. So that's a hard problem for government.
And what sort of ways are they using this technology? Well, the ISIS and some of these other nefarious entities.
So the drones have not been used to harm American civilians yet, but hypothetically, you could, as was done in Iraq, you could attach grenades in a drone and drop them. You could use perhaps even for chemical weapons. You could drop chemical weapons on a population. In the worst case scenario, you could fly a drone over a large gathering of people and release something toxic. That would be horrible. So we need to know how to prevent that.
I could also drive a car into a crowd and have it explode. Like, this stuff. We humans can figure out every single way to scare ourselves out of anything.
While at the same time letting all these good things happen.
At the moment, anybody can buy a drone. So how does the government begin to address this?
Well, what needs to happen is the regulations need to be made very clear, right? So right now there are regulations. You can't fly a drone over 400 feet. You have to keep it within line of sight. The regulations on the limits in weight. But there are a lot of things the government can't do, right? A government can't jam a drone right now. It can't jam the technology and confuse it and take it down because of surveillance and wiretapping laws. It can't shoot a drone out of the sky because of regulations about shooting down aircraft.
We need them to get more laws loosened. We need more loopholes, guys. They need more loopholes.
Might fall on people. So you need to allow the government to track the drones, regulate the drones, monitor the drones, and take down the drones, but do that in a way that, again, doesn't destroy the industry.
Well, Homeland Security has asked for just that. Is anyone in Congress listening?
Congress is listening. The White House is paying attention. The problem is, as with any new technology, there's a real backlash back and forth because you don't want to make the regulations too severe. It's not exactly clear how you do it. My personal favorite idea for how to stop drones is to train eagles. They're doing that in France.
No kidding.
I
Sounds
believe.
nuts.
Are you serious?
You're not kidding,
It's
are you?
totally nuts, and it's really bad for the talons, but it is possible. No, really what you need to do is the best way to do it is radio frequency jamming.
Yeah.
You need to be able to track the drones, and also you need to be able to regulate the drones so that they're not allowed to fly within certain areas. You need to be able to update the software so that that can be constantly changed. So when the Super Bowl happens, it is impossible to fly a drone near the stadium.
How is law enforcement dealing with this right now, Nick?
Law enforcement is perplexed. They want more tools, and they have some FAA regulations that are really hard to enforce.
Oh God, I can't even. It's so annoying. The paranoia around this stuff is the worst.
An increasing number of people, they are turning to social media to pick their next vacation spot, especially the millennials. A recent study found 60% of millennial travelers are on Instagram. That's a 375% increase from 2013. Other research shows more than 40% of people under the age of 33 prioritize their Instagrammability of a location to help them decide where to vacation next. Mark Elwood is contributing editor of Condé Nast Traveler and joins us to discuss. So we're looking at the pictures and we're looking at other people's pictures to decide where we're going?
Yeah, we're not picking a vacation destination and taking a picture once we get there. We're thinking, can I get a great picture? If I can't, I'm not going to go.
So it's changed how we even take pictures these days, you think?
I think we used to take pictures to look happy. Now we take them to look kind of hot and sexy. A lot of the Instagrams, you've got to look a little sexier. In the past, you just grinned.
This explains why my Instagram is so barren. New Zealand and Iceland are two popular destinations?
I think what you can see the impact of Instagram on tourism there, because New Zealand is one of the hottest destinations in the world.
I just kind of want to die a little bit inside. Let's not finish that clip. Let's talk about drugs.
Today, a rare success for Alzheimer's research. A new drug could slow down the progression of the deadly disease, which currently has no effective treatments.
It's hope in terms of that we continue to look for potential treatments. The data is intriguing.
Drug maker Biogen reported today at a major Alzheimer's conference that after 18 months of treatment, patients who received the highest dose saw a 30% reduction in memory and daily function decline versus those given a placebo. The drug removes buildup called amyloid plaques from the brain, thought to be responsible for Alzheimer's. While similar drugs have failed, the key difference here, the new drug was given to patients at the earliest stages of the disease who had these plaques.
If we can intervene early, we can slow the shrinkage of the brain. We can reduce or slow amyloid accumulation.
And it's important to detect this as early as possible.
Absolutely.
While researchers will continue to study this drug, they've asked the FDA to fast-track approval. The news today giving hope to those like 41-year-old Greg Donovan, who lost both his father and grandparents to the disease.
It's such a critical societal need, and there's so much human suffering involved with Alzheimer's. I hope that research continues.
John, it's so good to have some encouraging news, something positive in the fight against this disease. How long would a patient typically have to stay on this new drug?
Well, they're still waiting for FDA approval, but patients in the study taking it twice a month for 18 months got the biggest benefit. But that's certainly one thing researchers need to keep looking into.
Forever. You know how that kind of stuff works. That's how they all work. That's how they all work. Did you hear about the this driver that was doing like Uber and Lyft and then live streaming the drives but didn't tell the passengers?
Driver in Missouri is accused of live streaming hundreds of rides without telling his passengers. The driver worked for the Uber and Lyft ride-sharing services near St. Louis. He streamed the rides through a live video website called Twitch. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch reports some riders were told that cameras were there just for security. Vladimir Dudier of our streaming network, that's CBSN, shows us the backlash.
You haven't missed a thing. You missed 2 kids on their ride home after jail.
Jason Gargak reportedly filmed hundreds of rides with passengers without their knowledge and streamed the footage online for a live audience.
For the sake of privacy and not showing you guys exactly to people's houses anymore, I'll probably forget half the time. But I like to pretend like I remember.
Gargak's Twitch channel had more than 4,500 followers and has earned more than $3,500 since March.
Man, that is such a classic lazy dickhead streamer comment to make.
More than
half the time. But I like to pretend like I remember.
Gargak's Twitch channel had more than 4,500 followers and has earned more than $3,500 since March.
The things that were in those videos were very embarrassing.
St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporter Erin Heffernan said several riders didn't know they were in the videos until she told them.
There was children, elderly people, and a lot of, intoxicated people that were out drinking in the bar crowd.
Both Uber and Lyft say they've deactivated Gargak's accounts. Uber said in a statement that the troubling behavior in the videos is not in line with our community guidelines. A Lyft spokesperson said the safety and comfort of the Lyft community is our top priority. Gargak tweeted on Saturday that some people suggested getting rid of the videos he saved online. He wrote, "I've done that, for now." Gargak didn't return our request for comment.
Twitch,
for
everybody!
CBS This Morning, Vladimir.
Isn't that something? Isn't that? I just don't even know what to make about that. That seems like a really bad idea. That seems like you really shouldn't do that. I definitely wouldn't do that if I were you. Here's a fun one, just to kind of wake us up a little bit.
President Obama second-guessed himself, wondering, what if we were wrong?
That is a single-payer plan. I have not said that I was a single-payer supporter. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period.
We estimate we can cut the average family's premium by about $2,500 per year.
If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan, period. I don't want government bureaucrats meddling in your health care. No one will take it away.
For us to say that you've got to take a responsibility to get health insurance is absolutely not a tax.
In every respect, this is working, not just as intended, but better than intended. If nothing is done, this recession could linger for years. The unemployment rate could reach double digits. It is only government that can break the vicious cycle where lost jobs lead to people spending less money, which leads to even more layoffs. And what makes this recovery plan so important is not just that it will create or save 3.5 million jobs over the next 2 years. And
It goes on like this for a while, I'm not going to lie.
seats on federal boards and commissions. And I want to assure you, I'm really not that partisan a guy.
I have never said that I don't wear flag pins or refuse to wear flag pins. To abortion over the last 8 years, abortions have not gone down.
I believe in American exceptionalism, just as I suspect that the Brits believe in British exceptionalism and the Greeks believe in Greek exceptionalism. I believe in American exceptionalism with every fiber of my being.
Isn't that kind of fun? It's kind of fun, right? Yeah. Good times with Obama. Remember him? Yeah, me too. Me too. I had some, I used to get soundboard bites. I don't get them for Trump. You guys don't set him in for the Trump.
Hey.
Why don't you set him in for the Trump? Now let's talk about something that seems like it could be some exceptionally interesting news, and it's got nothing to do with politics.
Scientists today reported a remarkable discovery on Mars. A huge lake of salty water has been detected deep beneath the surface of the red planet. And where there is water, there could be life. Chip Reed takes a look.
It's hard to imagine a lake on the desolate planet of Mars, but a group of Italian scientists claims it's true, a groundbreaking discovery in the search for life on the red planet. Even science fiction's Martian didn't find a lake.
I colonized Mars.
But he'd be wise to hold off on buying that bathing suit. The water's a bit chilly. Mars, the fourth rock from the sun, is a lot colder than Earth, and the suspected lake is near the frigid Martian South Pole. Italian scientists claim they discovered it by hitting the area repeatedly with ground-penetrating radar, revealing what they say is a body of liquid water 12 miles wide, about 1 mile under the surface.
So there really is a possibility that there is a big 12-mile lake on Mars.
Yeah. Dr. James Zimbelman, a geologist with the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, says where there's water, there could be life.
Are we talking about whales and dolphins
here?
here?
Oh, no. It would be exciting. I mean, it would be the greatest news of the century if we found a microbe.
Last month, the same Italian space agency that made this discovery released the first ever 3D color video of Mars' frigid surface. But below the surface, it's even colder. So how could there be liquid water? The Italian scientists say the lake is so salty that the water is like sludge, making the temperature where water freezes much lower than that of ordinary water.
The search for life on Mars is very much alive. Behind me are the first 3 generations of Mars rovers. The 4th generation is expected to be launched in 2 years. A key part of its mission, to find the chemical fingerprints of life. Jeff?
How cool is
Chip, good
this?
question about whales and dolphins there. Worth asking, I guess. Also a good answer. Appreciate it, Chip Reed.
Yeah, I really want there to be something. I want there to be something there. You know, maybe we could go send like a probe and it just like digs down. I don't know if you've ever seen the Ninja Turtles, but they used to have these things that they could ride all the way down to the center of the earth. Maybe you could do something like that.
And good evening, I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, saving face. President Trump responding to a snub from Vladimir Putin today by postponing his highly touted summit in Washington. National Security Advisor John Bolton releasing a statement saying, quote, the president believes that the next bilateral meeting with President Putin should take place after the Russia witch hunt is over. So we've agreed that it will be after the first of the year. Now, we don't know whether the Russians have agreed to that or not. They haven't said. But after the first of the year is a big change from this fall, which is what the White House announced on Twitter.
Does that mean that the Russia investigation should be over? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Could we get to a point where we're not talking about Russia anymore? Is that what that means? I'm gonna hear it again.
And good evening. And good evening. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight. And good evening. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, saving face. President Trump responding to a snub from Vladimir Putin today by postponing his highly touted summit in Washington. National Security Advisor John Bolton releasing a statement saying, quote, the president believes that the next bilateral meeting with President Putin should take place after the Russia witch hunt is over. So we've agreed that it will be after the first of the year. Now, we don't know whether the Russians have agreed to that or not. They haven't said. But after the first of the year is a big change from this fall, which is what the White House announced on Twitter. So why is this meeting suddenly on ice? Well, our Jeff Zeleny asked.
Mr. President, why did you cancel the meeting with Vladimir Putin, sir?
Silence, and maybe the reason for Trump's reticence is this. When Putin got the invitation, the original one, a Russian aide replied with a, frankly, dismissive RSVP, saying of the second summit, quote, not now. That was an embarrassing slap at President Trump.
Why has Vladimir Putin not accepted your invitation?
Keep going. Come on. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, everybody. This way. Let's go. Come on, guys. Thank you very much.
We're done. We're done. Let's go. Why has Vladimir Putin not accepted your invitation, Mr. President?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, you saw President Trump. He didn't look happy with those questions. He moved quickly once Putin dissed him because he wanted to be the first to put the summit on ice. That's what it seems like. That, frankly, is par for the course for Trump. Remember North Korea and that summit? The president originally canceling that meeting with Kim Jong-un when he reportedly feared that Kim might be a no-show. And then, do you remember the Philadelphia Eagles White House visit? Well, if you don't, here's what happened. The president pulled the plug on that meet and greet after a number of players turned down the president's invite. And remember Trump's Economic Council? We do. He disbanded it last year because, you guessed it, so many members were quitting over the president's response to the white nationalist attack in Charlottesville that he said he was disbanding the whole thing. Oh, but the reason Trump is giving for putting the summit with Putin on ice until, quote, after the first of the year, according to John Bolton, you heard it, they're going to wait till after the Russia witch hunt is over. Look, the use of the words witch hunt, we all know at this point, that is just the way it is from the Trump White House, even though his own intelligence, top intelligence officials say it is a completely false thing to say. But it is interesting that Team Trump is yet again putting a hard deadline on Mueller. It sure seems to be wishful thinking because it was last August when Trump's former attorney Ty Cobb said, quote, I'd be embarrassed if this is still haunting the White House by Thanksgiving. And worse, if it's still haunting him by year end. Well, now he is truly haunted because when the investigation was still hanging over the White House after Thanksgiving and after Christmas and in January came this prediction.
When do you believe this investigation will reach its conclusion?
There's no reason for it not to conclude soon.
What is soon?
Well, soon to me would be within the next, 4 to 6 weeks.
Wouldn't have even been spring by the time that happened. Okay. Well, safe to say their predictions have been pretty bad. And today, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, faced hostile questions about what even happened in the first summit with Putin. Never mind putting this whole second one on ice.
On ice. Putting you on ice, young lady. Putting you on ice. Getting pretty worked up there. I'm just saying. Seems like that's pretty worked up. Yeah.
Remember the Nunes memo? Well, back in February, the House Intel Committee, under the leadership of Devin Nunes, made public a memorandum alleging the FBI abused its authority in obtaining a FISA warrant against former Trump campaign aide Carter Page. Well, over the weekend, the Trump administration released the previously top-secret FISA warrant used against Page, and the Washington Examiner's Byron York opined that the new documents bolstered the Nunes memo. But the Washington Post's Philip Bump had a completely different take, writing that the warrant damaged Nunes' credibility. To try to sort it all out, well, let's bring in Congressman Devin Nunes himself. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
So first interview since this come out. What do you think about the criticism?
Well, we're really happy that it came out. We've been fighting for this for months, for this FISA application. It's the FISA and the 3 renewals to be put out for the public to see. There's still a lot of redactions. We would like for all those to be unredacted so that the American public has a chance to see this in full transparency.
Now let's watch some. This is just a sliver of the criticism that you've received. And I know that's nothing new for you, but over the weekend after this was released, let's watch.
He basically wrote this entire memo to mislead the American public without ever having read this FISA application.
They were lying when they said that that the FISA judges were fooled because they were not told that part of the base of the application.
Devin Nunes acting as a useful idiot for the Russian government.
Your reaction to some of that?
I enjoy it. Just bring it on. The more that they do, the more that they attack, the more that we know we're right over the target. They cannot deny. What was the major point of the memo was to say that the dossier was used in this application, and it made up the bulk of the FISA. Even with the redactions, you can see that that's the case.
But I want to ask you about that particular part. This quote from a FISA expert, David Criss, on the warrant application on the website Lawfare. This is what he said. Now, we can see that the footnote disclosing Steele's possible bias takes up more than a full page in the applications. There's literally no way the FISA court could have missed it. The FBI gave the court enough information to evaluate Steele's credibility, and that basic point's being repeated quite often.
By the left. So one of the things you have to realize now with all the press is the press, certain members of the press work for the Democratic Party, and the Lawfare blog has been one of them. I mean, they've been, every day there's some new attack out, and so I don't put a lot of credibility into what they say. The fact of the matter is that you have to present verified information to the court. And let's not forget, to open up a counterintelligence investigation to a campaign, unprecedented, but then to use these invasive types of capabilities on an American citizen that should be very, very seldom used. In this case, not only did they use it, but they used it with information from the other candidate's campaign, and it wasn't verified.
That's the key point right there. So there you have it. Hopefully you've gotten your Nunes fix now. All right, I got a couple other things. One or two more things we should probably play. Let's see if they're coming in yet. They're all sinking in like right now as we do the show. Checking. It's boop. Oh, it's sinking down right now. Well, we have other clips to play, I suppose. But I wanted to play you these, as they were the freshest, and they were the latest, and they were the greatest. But I'll have to play you something stale and old and not worth playing, not worth talking about. We shouldn't be playing it at all.
The Israeli Prime Minister says that his country initiated the evacuation of the controversial White Helmets group from Syria at the request of Donald Trump and other Western allies. The White Helmets operate in rebel-held areas and...
I just wanted that one was the clip that actually said Trump requested it. The other clip, I said Trump requested it, but the clip didn't actually say it. So there you go. I had to play it just for a brief moment because now you know. And knowing is half the battle. All right, a couple of funny ones for you. How about this one? Well, this one isn't funny. I'll end on a funny one. Jeez.
Back with this Fox News alert. Just a few moments ago, Republican lawmakers announced that they will file articles of impeachment against Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein. Joining me now with what this means, how all of this is going to play out, former Congressman Jason Chaffetz, author of the new book, The Deep State. Good to see you tonight, Congressman. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for being here.
What does it mean?
I'm glad Congress is finally standing up for itself, because how many times do you have to have duly issued subpoenas that are just totally ignored by the Department of Justice? If you had done this, you'd be in jail. But the only way to enforce a subpoena is to get the Department of Justice to do it. And Rod Rosenstein has been more than cavalier in saying, no, I'm not going to comply with that. They've redacted things that shouldn't have been redacted, and they're not providing the documents to Congress. So that's one part of it, noncompliance to duly issued subpoenas. The second part is this FISA application. It has Rod Rosenstein's name on it. He is central to an investigation being done by Congress, the Inspector General, and perhaps others. And so here you have somebody that should have recused himself. He's signing off on an investigation. He's overseeing an investigation of which he's a central figure.
All right, so what do you think the likely outcome is? And Meadows and Jordan are going to be on with Laura Ingraham later this evening to talk about it. But, you know, is this to force their hands so that they're more forthcoming with the documents, or is it real? Do they really want to impeach Rod Rosenstein?
They should. We had House counsel look at this. We tried to impeach Lois Lerner, something a lot of people don't know.
That went really well.
Well, we could, what they said was, under advice and consent and the Constitution, House counsel came back and said, if you're confirmed by the United States Senate, then yes, you can do that. But very few members are willing to pull that trigger. And, you know, you have people like Jordan and Meadows, and I hope a host of others that will start to understand it is one of the constitutional levers that is given to the power of Congress to...
Should probably put this in the show, I think. That's big enough news that it should probably go in the show, which means I need to decide where it goes real quick, like, don't I? Talk about, all right. Okay. I can do this. Yeah, let's see. Let's put it here. I think we can make it work here. So I'll put it here, slot it in there, and I'll play you the other clip that I have for you. This will probably be our last one before we get going, I would imagine. So I think Chase will be here in just a moment. So here we have Donald Trump, breaking news once again, shattering the norms when he gets caught on tape, hot mic, requesting a Coke.
Talk about grasping at straws. Have you heard the juiciest part of the Trump-Cohen tape?
They don't have a... Give me a Coke, please. They don't have a legitimate purpose.
Incontrovertible evidence of a thirsty president...
Give me a Coke, please.
...living up to his reputation for daily consumption of...
12 Diet Cokes, right?
That's 144 ounces of president fuel.
You'd be surprised how many commenters tweeted, my favorite part is when he yells, get me a Coke, please. Others ranked it up there with Mom, the meatloaf from Wedding Crashers.
Hey, Ma, can we get some meatloaf?
There were comparisons to JFK, my fellow Americans.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask. Give me a Coke, please.
But there was one thing that got the most comments, that even critics found pleasing. Wow, he said please. He said please? Must be a fake. Trump says please to the help. That's my president. He hasn't always been complimentary about his favorite beverage, tweeting, I have never seen a thin person drinking Diet Coke, and I'll still keep drinking that garbage. Jimmy Fallon once chronicled the president's behavior as he downed his daily dozen.
The American dream is dead. Bing, bing, bong, and dat. Hello. And God bless the United States.
Now he has a red button on his Oval Office desk to push when he wants a Coke, but when he was a candidate, he actually had to speak.
Give me a Coke, please.
As one commenter noted, things, including hush money, go better with Coke.
Things go better with Coca-Cola.
Jeannie Mose.
Give me a Coke, please.
CNN.
Things go better with Coke.
New York.
It's much more fun when you're
I don't know why CNN's ratings are down. I can't even imagine. That seems really strange to me. Could you give me a Coke? That's what they're doing stories on. There you go. You see? Fresh clips. It's all fresh clips. Hello, Mr. Chase. Chase is back from his Senate hearing with Mike Pompeo. Yeah, I don't have a chat for you, sorry. But you can read my chat if you like. Somebody took my computer. Perhaps. Do it on the phone, perhaps. Somebody took my laptop, so I have no computer for you.
Who did that?
I do not know. It happened while I was gone.
These people realize the production value of this show
I don't
requires.
I don't think they do, dude. I don't think they do. Hi, buddy. How's it going? How you doing? How's it going over there?
I need to mute things.
Yeah, sure you do.
And do that and,
Yeah, you do.
and act like a professional.
Yeah, totally.
That I am not.
Go ahead, Do your thing. Do
my
your
thing.
Flip it. I should get myself a big thing of water. That's a good idea. It's getting warm. It's that time of year, Chase.
That's right. The time of year where it gets cold. It's really freezing out there today. Really cold. It's a frame of mind.
Run the AC all damn day, and then got to do a show, so you got to turn it off. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I know you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
I do look good in a suit. I know I do.
You're taking my chat room away. I was going to read.
Oh, wait.
That's okay.
I thought you have it over there.
Yeah, I do. I just don't have a habit of looking over there. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay.
How many more screens do you need, man?
I could probably.
You could probably add some more. Yeah,
I could probably use a couple more screens, Chase.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, you're probably.
Well, I should go get my water, and then what do you say we kick the thing in the gears of going?
I say that that is a good idea.
Yeah,
I like this. This is a good plan. And,
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm down for that.
Sure. You want me to play a random clip, or you just want to chat?
I'm just gonna hang out with the chat room.
You just hang out with the chat room?
I'm gonna hang out with these guys.
You hang out. I also have I don't know, maybe if you want to get like a vibe going, but I got like.
I love the fact that
I got this vibe music.
I just got a copyright claim, content ID for something that I did 4 years ago.
That drives me crazy. That happens all
the
time.
Really, people?
So I got this, or we could do something like with a little more energy, like I got this, It's got. It will.
Is that gearing up?
Yeah, it will have more energy. It doesn't have any energy at the moment,
Sounds
but
good.
it's about to. Wait, hold on. Here comes the energy. See, there you go. See, there you go. It's just a little Chase chat music.
I like that. Welcome to the Chase Chat Minute, where we sit down and talk about whatever the chat room wants to talk about. We could talk about what I want to talk about. But I like to talk about what you want to talk about, because this is the Chase Chat Minute, sponsored by GoDaddy.com. Get your piece of the internet for as low as $3.99. Go to GoDaddy.com/bite-me for more information. I'm kidding. Just a joke. How you guys doing? We can talk for a moment. We can talk. We can have a nice conversation together. All together. And together. All together now. Well, I try to handle the traffic. I had my carpool buddy today with me, my wife. We went and attended a meeting of competitive sport, also known as baseball, in beautiful downtown Seattle. It was a beautiful day today, just a gorgeous day. Unfortunately, there are some people out there that just don't know how to drive. It's just the way it goes. I don't want to complain to you guys about your normal traffic and weather. That's boring. The problem, Ruker, with those flying cars is if you get all those flying cars, there's no way people are going to adhere to any kind of air lane, or there'd have to be some sort of semi-automatic
they'd have to
crop.
fly themselves, yeah. Hey, so did I miss anything?
Well,
smells a little stinky in here, dude.
Well, I need a shower now, but other than the self-preservation, things are good.
Oh.
Thank you. I forgot. I was meaning to flush, but thank you for getting it.
All right, chat room. So please, effing bang suggest, as the show goes along, we're gonna need your damn titles and stuff, because God knows.
I would think so. No, I'm sorry. I wouldn't think so. No.
What?
I would think so.
Think so? What?
No. I wasn't sure if I used would or wouldn't.
What? Where are we? What's going on?
Is this real life?
I don't know what's happening anymore. Let's go full podcast. What do you say?
Let's go 6%.
Let's just pull out of this.
At least 6%.
Let's pull out of this and go full podcast. All right, chat room, please bang suggest as we go along.
Method.
Producer Matt, maybe if you hear anything too, you could be like our hyper title master. Like maybe you could reform them. Like maybe like the remix master or something. I don't know. So if he sees a couple of good titles, he could like do a remix. I don't know. I'm just hungry. That's all I know. All right, here we go. It is the Unfilter share, and it begins in a 3, in a 2, in a 3, 2, 1. Psyche mind. I don't know why I like doing that.
Is this one of those pregnant pauses?
Yeah, that was exactly. Yeah. You got to practice the pause, dude. All right, here we go. This is Unfilter, episode 288 for July 25th, 2018.
Breaking news, more secret tapes. Federal prosecutors tonight in possession of 12 different audio recordings that were seized during FBI raids on Michael Cohen, the president's former lawyer. This is according to court filings. And it comes just 3 days after we learned there's a tape of Trump and Cohen talking about a payment to a former Playboy model who says she had an affair with Trump.
Hey, everybody. Happy summer to you. Hopefully, wherever you are, you're nice and cool, calm, and collected because we're ready to jack up that stress level. Once again, it's time for Unfilter, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly show about the news you shouldn't be watching. My name is Chase, and joining me in the studio this week, I know, it's crazy.
Hey.
Mr. Hey, you're here.
Hey, buddy.
We're face to face.
It's good to be back,
We're
man.
both wearing San Francisco shirts.
Oh, yeah. Well,
for odd reasons.
because it's hot out. It's like that's like the best of my warm wear is that stuff that I had to get while I was in California. That's really how the math works.
Well, welcome home.
Thank you, buddy. It's good to be here. It's good to be running the board again. It's good to be back in the action saddle.
I do not
That's
appreciate.
what I've always called it.
I do not appreciate you bringing the heat back with you.
I know.
You should have left it where it was.
I apologize about that in particular. That did not go as planned. But, man, thank you for running the board while I was gone.
Yeah, man, it's always fun.
I thought since we're going to be back in the studio, we might want to start back in an area, like our power area.
Can I predict?
I guess, if you want to spoil it. I guess.
ASL?
Yeah, how'd you know it's the cyber? Maybe we're a little predictable.
As long as we're talking about Playboy models.
We got to warm up somehow.
Can we talk about Playboy models?
Well, let's talk about the GCHQ.
That's not fun.
Privacy International brought something to light about 2 years ago.
If I asked you to visualize a hacker right now, you might picture a lone, hooded teenage whiz hell-bent on corporate downfall. But hacking can actually be good. In the right hands, it is used to reveal weaknesses in computer systems which, in theory, makes us all safer from things like having our bank accounts compromised. It's a bit like cars and crash test dummies. Aren't we glad that clever scientists test our cars and make us safer? Sometimes governments can be like that scientist, protecting your safety. But other times, our safety isn't their concern at all. In fact, their goal can be to identify weak points in order to take advantage of you. Yes, the government can hack you. Well, assuming you own a computer, phone, tablet, or any other device that connects to the internet.
So very, very, very scary. So there's a long, interesting backstory behind Privacy International, and they're trying to raise awareness around spying in general, and trying to make it maybe even like against human rights, like against Article 8 of the EU Convention on Human Rights. That's their goal, but it sort of spiraled into some coverage about 2 years ago, and then nothing's really been said since then. Well, as we record this, 2 days ago, the Investigatory Powers Tribunal has ruled that the GCHQ, MI5, and MI6 engaged in indiscriminate and illegal bulk cable tapping surveillance for 15 years. 15 years, perhaps even longer, in a 113-paragraph judgment handed down today, filed with assurances that they say in here, there's some really good stuff like, they lied to them about some of the legality around some of this. They also failed to provide some material documentation that they said they would provide to the tribunal. And these are only really kind of some of the vague inferences we get in this 113-page PDF. The agencies also had to amend their witness statements several times after it became obvious that their original comments claiming that the foreign secretary obeyed the law in full were just simply not true. Like, there's a lot of little things in there about all of these laws that they broke, including some potentially really major ones. But there's no punishment. There's no reprimand in place. There's nothing going to change. It's just sort of, so what? This just sort of happened, and I guess nothing's gonna really necessarily change. And I found it fascinating because this whole thing has just sort of surfaced this week, and it really kind of got kicked off back when Privacy International, which is a charity that first brought this case 2 years ago, lost its attempt to overturn an earlier ruling that legal oversight of the GCHQ's bulk spying regime was not fit for its purpose, as in the people that were watching GCHQ were not doing a good enough job. But it failed at that. But it did snowball into some of this. It's kind of a fascinating thing. It's sort of like yes, they've broke these laws. They even lied to us when we tried to investigate, but we're going to do nothing about it.
So is this where the power of the people come into play, and vote and get people in there at will? I mean, honestly, when you say things like nothing is going to happen and nothing's going to be done,
right?
The people have the power, and if everybody came together on one common goal, one thing. I mean, and this is what happens with protests, right? You get out there, everybody has their own thing that they want to protest. You get everybody together on one thing,
right? They go out there and
you can make a difference. You can make a change. You can.
I just can't.
But people,
they won't.
People are lazy.
No, it's not that.
No,
They're
some
scared.
people are.
There's
there's
ISIS.
Oh, I got to pick up my kid from soccer practice,
ISIL.
or
you got Al Qaeda.
I know you got Daesh. I know you got all these organizations.
You got Russia.
I get that.
And you know what? What if Russia's trying to hack you?
Tonight, top officials charged with protecting the nation's voting system say Russia remains a threat to upcoming midterm elections this November.
Based on this prior demonstration of capability and intent, we are planning and preparing as if they'll try again this fall and beyond.
The Justice Department recently indicted 12 Russian intelligence officials for leading Russian efforts to interfere in the 2016 election.
So you can't dial this stuff down right now. You see, you got this problems with the Russians, and you got terrorism, and then you got, of course, Iran. So you can't be voting these people out.
But see, that's the thing, though. You can. You can, and
I'm not so sure I agree.
I think you can.
I like to believe you could, but if that was true, would we be in this mess?
Well, it's one of those situations where, if people engaged, and our audience, they're passionate, they're listening, we're going over things.
It's slowly expanding, like the more and more people that care. I think it is.
But it's
I
also
think that's why podcasts like this are growing.
Yeah, but it's also becoming a more polarization.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
And that's the danger, I feel, where I was thinking like of an analogy. You get 10 different people, say different walks of life, different political affiliations, and let's say, for example, you just saw somebody get hit by a car.
Yeah.
Everybody would spring into action, I would think, and try to help.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Because it's right in front of you. You see it. We're going to you don't ask their political affiliation. You don't care. You're going to help out everybody. This is one of those situations where this affects everybody. This is something that's happening right in front of you, and people aren't taking action because there's so much noise.
Right.
I mean, it's on our radar, but the common person taking their kid to soccer practice, they don't know.
Well, how does it get on their radar? The media.
Well, and then the thing is, then that's when you get, politicians and other people saying fake news, don't believe it, don't believe anything you hear in the media. And then what happens is people don't want to do the research, they don't want to jump into it.
I don't even know if I go that far. I'd say if
I've heard it from people. They go, well, you work in the media. Everything you guys say is a lie.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's not true.
I think you're conflating the reputation of the media with something else. What I'm trying to get at is, like, if it was a central focus of something like the media, then it would generally raise the awareness of it, right? It's not something they focus on. It's not something the public right now seems to be inspired to go do the research on their own, and so it's sort of left to people who listen to podcasts and things like that.
Right, and unfortunately, it's a very, in the global percentage of things, it's a small percentage where people will actually engage and do something. I know our audience would, but I mean, when you look at the overall percentage of America, you look at us. There's 350 million people that live in the United States, and we have 600 patrons.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. We got 600 patrons, though. Wow.
Yeah, but no, I'm happy about that. But I mean, it's all in perspective.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I follow what you're saying. Well, you know who is sitting up and engaged? Your good buddy.
My friend? One of my friends?
Tucker Tuckerson.
Ah, Tucker.
Yesterday, we asked the president about this, along with many other issues. Tonight, we're running fewer commercials and airing our extended interview with the president.
What a patriot, right? Fewer commercials, Chase.
Oh, that's because they don't have ads. That's how you spin it.
Part one of that conversation.
By the way.
Yeah, that would be usually the one you'd want to sell more ads in.
Right. No, you spin it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the ad. You don't have the ads. You didn't sell.
Although you'd think, exclusive interview with Trump probably does get decent ratings.
Well, you could probably throw a logo up there.
Mr. President, thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
The reaction to your press conference in Washington was swift and intense. Former CIA Director John Brennan
the press conference being the one with him and Putin
described it as treasonous and a potentially impeachable offense. Why the push toward conflict with Russia in Washington on both sides?
Well, I think Brennan's a very bad guy, and if you look at it, a lot of things happened under his watch. I think he's a very bad person. I also think that when you watch Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, when you watch all of the things that have happened, and Comey, you take a look at that, and McCabe, who's got some pretty big problems, I assume.
This guy is, he's great. So, Brennan, though, is a bad guy. I know the president isn't supposed to say these things, but he's a torturer. He's a murderer with drones. He obviously has been involved with some sort of political shenanigans around this whole Russia investigation, and now he's taken money from NBC to be a political lackey on their talking head shows. So he is a bad guy, and these guys are going out there and taking a nice fat check and making millions of dollars. It's just, you don't normally hear this coming out of the mouth of the president of the United States.
You look at the deception, the lies, what's gone on in the last fairly long period of time before I won. Long before I won, during the campaign, I guess probably during the Republican, when I was fighting against 17 other Republicans. So this has been going on for a long time, but these are people that, in my opinion, they're bad people. And they're being exposed for what they are. And it's a shame that it has to happen, but it's really hurt our country.
Their view is that the United States...
Now, Tucker is going to make a suggestion here that I think might be it. I think what we might be seeing emerge in the United States, political class, are two different outlooks on the world. And I think I subscribe to the second outlook. And so I think the first outlook is the biggest threat facing the United States is Russia. They want to interfere with our elections. They are potentially manipulating the president. They have a vendetta against Hillary Clinton. They have weaponized WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. They launched a sustained campaign attack against the DNC and John Podesta. So that's one outlook. The other outlook is sort of more like looking at it from an economic standpoint and looking at Russia more as a weapons and energy dealer who has an economy that's smaller than Italy, that while obviously has a lot of reasons to want to influence the election, as does Canada, China, and Mexico, and the more likely real competitor for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years is China. And they have way more people than us. They are building out like crazy. They are getting more aggressive in their response to what we do with tariffs. They're getting more aggressive in the South Sea. They are establishing themselves as a real world power, and they've got us by the balls with manufacturing, so they've really got us over a barrel, not to mention they own so much of our infrastructure and are buying out more all of the time. So there are two really strong philosophies developing. Well, they've been developed for a while, but they're coming out in the actions of these politicians. You have one camp who believes that big bad guy is Russia, and you have another camp who believes that Russia's a player, but China is what we should be focused on. And Tucker kind of touches on that a bit here.
All right.
is forever in conflict with Russia, which is our chief global adversary, and anyone who doesn't believe that is betraying the United States. Without taking up whether that's true or not, why do you think there is this bipartisan consensus on that in Washington?
Well, it's sort of incredible because you look at World War I and World War II, that was Germany, and in World War II, Russia lost 50 million people and helped us win the war. And I was saying to myself the other day, I said, you know, Russia really helped us. I'm not pro-Russia, pro-anybody. I just want to have this country be safe. I don't want nuclear weapons, even people thinking about it. You know, Russia and the United States control 90% of the nuclear weapons in the world. And getting along with Russia, and not only for that reason, that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Are they our chief adversary, would you say?
Well, they're strong military, but their economy is much smaller, as you know, than China.
So they're kind of dancing around the issue. I can see you're dying over there, so I'll wrap it
No,
up.
I'm fine.
No, you're
I'm
dying.
all right.
It's all right. No, I saw it.
I mean,
it's all right. They're dancing around. They get to it.
I mean, it's like, come on. Bring me what?
So the
bring me the meat and potatoes here.
Okay, so let's keep going. We will get there. All right, we're gonna get there.
All right.
Here's a little more on Zemetlin.
Comparison to that concept.
This is Blumenthal.
So what are you going to do about this? You brought up the translator. Or do you think Republicans will actually allow a subpoena to be issued to get the translator to testify before Congress to say what went on behind closed doors?
Well, that is a key question, John. And my answer is that Republicans have a historic responsibility, as do all of us, because the red light is flashing, as the Director of National Security, Dan Coates, put it, much as it was before 9/11. We are in a 9/11 national emergency because our country is under attack. Literally, that attack is ongoing and pervasive, verified by objective and verifiable evidence. Those words are, again, from the Director of National Security.
Fishing bombs everywhere. So we have a 9/11 style emergency here. Which, of course, is never hyperbole when anybody uses that and throws that around. And it's a sustained attack. And so it's so important that we have to consider getting the translators on the record, subpoenaing them, get them down there, get them to say under oath what happened. It's very, very, very important. Well, the administration came up with a compromise, and that was they sent in Mike Pompeo, used to be the director of the CIA. Now he runs the State Department, you know, the war machine. He sits down and gets a little heated when he stands in to try to explain what happened at that summit.
Secretary, when the president meets alone with President Putin, it allows the Kremlin-sponsored state media and the Russian Ministry of Defense to provide more information, at least from their perspective, not only to the American people, but sometimes it seems to the members of the president's own cabinet. So I'd like to ask you some questions to get to understand what actually happened. Has the president told you what he and President Putin discussed in their 2-hour closed-door meeting in Helsinki?
I watched Mike Pompeo. I watched this entire thing. God, it was long, dude. It was over 3 hours. And I also watched him more recently in another hearing. I'm pretty convinced Mike Pompeo runs the country. I'm pretty sure it's Mike Pompeo. This is the actual president of the United States.
Wow.
And
that's a statement, man. That's bold.
Oh, man. He is the guy that is dialed in on every single military operation we're doing, on every diplomatic operation we're doing. If you think about it, he's been the one doing the chief negotiations.
So are you saying Mike Pompeo is the deep state?
He is. He runs this nation, and he uses Donald Trump as a tool to do it, is what I'm telling you. I've been watching.
System T just took the words out of my mouth. Is this Trump's Dick Cheney right here? Is this?
Yeah.
This is the Dick Cheney for Trump.
Yeah.
Wow.
You could put your microphone on.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. The presidents have a prerogative to choose who's in meetings or not. I'm confident you've had private one-on-one meetings in your life as well. You've chosen that setting as the most efficient way to...
I just asked you a simple question. Did you... you can't eat up my 7 minutes, Mr. Secretary. Did he tell you whether or not what happened in those 2 hours?
Yeah.
Now, I didn't grab it for this show, but I watched this live, and this conversation gets to a point where Pompeo looks at Senator Menendez with that look like, I'm going to kill you. You are talking to the person who runs this. You know I run this place, and I'm gonna get you. Like, it was this look, so much so that it's at the very end of the hearing, and when Menendez stands up, the gal behind him looks at him and makes one of those like holy shit faces. Like she like her eyebrows
Wow.
go up. She goes wow, like she does that whole wow expression.
Yeah.
Like that guy just stared you down. And it gets to be a pretty heated back and forth between these two.
Senator, the predicate of your question implied some notion that there was something improper about having a one-on-one meeting. I completely disagree with the premise of your question.
I didn't ask you a predicate. I asked you a simple question. I hope we're going to get through it. Did he tell you what transpired in the 2-hour meeting?
I've had a number of conversations with President Trump about what transpired in the meeting. I was also present when he and...
What did he say?
I was also president.
I'm sorry.
What he said.
Did he?
Yeah. I can see now where you're extrapolating.
Did he just
with President Trump about what transpired in the meeting? I was also present when he and President Putin both gave us a sense of what they discussed in the
Okay, good. I was just curious if you heard the same thing.
I definitely heard.
The
Yes,
meeting
confirmed.
that followed immediately after.
Did you have
I've also had the chance to speak with Sergei Lavrov twice about the Russian view on what takes place. I think I have a pretty complete understanding of what took place
Did you
in that
speak
meeting.
to the translator who was at that meeting?
No, I haven't.
Have you seen any of her notes?
Senator, I've been in lots of meetings. I've had lots of note takers and lots of translators. I've never relied on the work that they did
for me to
president understand what took place in that meeting, and it does not need to be done here, and won't be.
Did the president discuss?
Won't be. Like he's calling the shots. You know, he's calling the shots.
Understand what took place in that meeting, and it does not need to be
Did the
done
president
here,
discuss?
and won't be.
Did the president discuss relaxing U.S. Sanctions on Russia, including CAATSA sanctions?
Senator, the U.S. policy with respect to sanctions remains completely unchanged.
So the president did not, is what you're telling me, that I asked a very specific question.
Yes,
did
Senator,
the
I give you a
president
very
tell
specific
you that
answer.
he discussed relaxing Russia's sanctions or not? Yes or no?
Pompeo looks like he is a ball of rage under the surface.
No.
Senator, presidents are entitled to have private meetings. I'm telling you what U.S. policy is. I came here today.
No, but
He's getting a little sweaty around the dome, too.
You told me that
Yeah.
he had a conversation
That's
with
right.
you in which he told you what transpired. I think the nation and so all of us who are policy makers deserve to know so that we can fashion policy accordingly. Did he tell Putin that I'll release or ultimately relax sanctions?
Senator, what you need to conduct your role, your appropriate role, I will provide you today. That is United States policy with respect to the issues you request. You asked me about U.S. policy with respect to sanctions, and I can confirm to you that no commitment has been made to change those policies in any way.
Did the president at this meeting call upon President Putin to withdraw from Crimea and eastern Ukraine?
Senator, I began my statement today with the United States government's policy.
I understand the
with respect to
declaration. I
Crimea.
welcome it. I'm glad that it seems like we had to do a lot of effort to get there, but the question...
He started with a declaration that the Trump administration's position will be and will remain that we will not recognize the annexation of Crimea.
Okay.
Is when he had a chance, did he confront Putin and say, we don't recognize your annexation of Crimea, we don't recognize your continuing hostilities in eastern Ukraine, and there's consequences for that?
Senator, the president was very clear with Vladimir Putin about U.S. positions. They're the U.S. positions that are the Trump administration's positions, and he spoke about them very firmly and clearly when he met with Vladimir Putin.
And that, he told you that?
Senator, I'm telling you what he had a conversation with Vladimir Putin about, and I'm telling you what U.S. policy is today. I understand, Senator, I understand the game that you're playing.
No,
I get
no,
it.
you know, Mr. Secretary. With all due respect, I don't appreciate you characterizing my questions. My questions is to get to the truth.
Now he's pointing at Pompeo with his pencil. I don't think Pompeo's going to like that much.
We don't know what the truth is. And the only way that we will know what the truth is, what transpired in those 2 hours, in a highly amazing period of time to...
It's great watching, and Pompeo takes a deep breath. And I was watching the Time magazine feed, and the beautiful thing about the Time magazine feed is that it was close in on Pompeo the entire time. They never showed the other guy, so you could just watch his face the entire time.
Spend alone, one-on-one, is by understanding at least that if you were briefed by the president, what he told you. I don't think that's unfair to know, to understand what policy is. Let me ask you this. Did the president say they were going to change our force structure in Syria?
Senator, presidents are permitted to have conversations with their cabinet members that aren't repeated in public. I owe the president the capacity for him to have conversations with him. provide him the best foreign policy advice that I can. It's what I was
Let me ask you this, Mr. Secretary. Here's something you can answer for me.
Right.
Because you're not going to answer any of the questions that would get us to the truth. As CIA director, you stated in an interview with the BBC that you fully expect Russia to continue its attacks on our democracy by attempting to interfere in our midterm elections as we speak. In his conversation with Putin, I hope the president laid out the consequences of interference in the 2018 election, but I know you can't tell me that, so you're not
Actually, I can't
Oh,
tell
do you
that,
want to
Senator.
share that one with me?
I can't. No, I can't.
That one you want to share with me?
No, Senator, I can tell you that because the president has disclosed that.
Okay.
The president disclosed what he said to Vladimir Putin about Russian interference in our elections, and he said that he is confident that as a result of that conversation, Vladimir understands that it won't be tolerated.
I wish he had said that in public in Helsinki. Let me ask you this. Senator Graham and I and others are working on a new bill to hold Russia accountable. Given that you assert the administration is tough on Russia, will you commit to working with us on a new Russia sanctions bill?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. North Korea.
I do whine because I want to win.
It's a little contentious. And just about the last hour of that summit, the White House made an announcement.
The White House just announced it will postpone that second meeting with Putin, where the president over Twitter had offered this invitation to come to the White House in the fall. We'll postpone that until the Mueller probe is complete. Let's remember, we still know nada.
What's interesting is in the statement, they don't just say once the Mueller probe is complete, they say in the new year.
Well, and they also said when this witch hunt is completed.
Yeah, they do call it a witch hunt too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, classic. It's classic. They call it a witch hunt in the thing, and then they say
it was Mr. Mustache.
They're making a Red Book prediction too. Yeah, it was Bolton. They're making a Red Book prediction that the Mueller probe will be wrapped up in the new year. That would be a New Year present, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? No more talking about the Russia probe.
You mean it would be all over?
Whew.
You mean we wouldn't hear about it at all?
Yeah.
Either way?
No, I don't think so. No.
No, of course not.
So I have to warn you. I'm sorry.
I just can't.
At the risk of going double cucker, which is,
dude, once you go double, you can't go back.
I'm not sure. Once you go double, isn't that just not cucker? I'm not sure.
Watch this.
There was a very clear belief that Carter Page was conspiring with Russia in ways that were nefarious.
There was overwhelming evidence to have probable cause to do surveillance on Carter Page. It would have been a dereliction of duty for our FBI not to have sought a surveillance warrant.
As you say, it makes a compelling case that there is probable cause to believe that Carter Page was acting as an agent of a foreign power.
Woo! All right, so Carter Page is one of the Trump campaign buffoons who is clearly a Russian spy because he spent some time in Moscow. And that's all it takes. Actually, the reason why we're talking about Carter Page here is because that was sort of one of the key reasons for the FISA authorization to monitor members of the Trump campaign. And it was sort of positioned as a way to take a little bit of the stink off of the dossier, the PIS dossier, as the actual mechanism that authorized the FISA warrant.
A compelling case, really? Well, if it's so compelling, why aren't we hearing that case in court at Carter Page's treason trial? Well, because it's total nonsense. It's a bad joke. The FISA application doesn't even begin to prove that Carter Page betrayed his country in any way. But the application does prove other things. We now know, for example, conclusively, that the discredited Steele dossier was central to the Obama administration's request to spy on the Trump campaign. Former FBI Director Jim Comey has publicly denied that, perhaps assuming the actual request would never be released. Comey claimed that the dossier was not a significant part of the government's request, and that turns out to be a lie. Not only did the Obama administration use the Steele dossier as the basis of its spying request, it appears the FBI did essentially nothing to verify the claims of the dossier, despite the fact they knew it was a partisan document paid for by political operatives, the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC. It was too good to check, apparently. Instead of sending its own agents to run down the facts, which of course it could have done, in fact it exists to do, the FBI instead cited a Yahoo News article to prove that the dossier was reliable. The only problem with that, the Yahoo piece was itself based on leaked information from Steele. You'd have to be utterly incompetent to do something like that, or totally dishonest.
It took them a bit to get there, unfortunately, but that was the last part there is, so the dossier, instead of being verified by them going out and verifying the facts in the dossier, they verified its legitimacy by citing a Yahoo News article, which the details in the Yahoo News article were leaked by the guy who authored the dossier. So that was the cyclical cycle they used to sort of give the dossier credibility. Now, my Red Book prediction is the FBI is going to release documents that show they did indeed try to verify aspects of the dossier. I don't know what the timing of it will be, but my Red Book prediction is there will be releases from the FBI that says either through some sort of document release or through a statement that they did try to verify the components of the dossier. But as of right now, when you look at what has been released of the FISA warrant, it looks like they just sort of use that Yahoo News article as the most underpinning piece of legitimacy. Yahoo News. And it goes back to something we've talked about a couple of times, where the quote-unquote intelligence agencies or leakers will leak information to the media that may or may not be accurate. Let's just say for the sake of argument it is accurate, right? So they'll leak information to the media, then they'll run a story about it. And then 6 months later, there's hearings, and they're talking about if something's really a threat, say like cyber threats. Then they'll just, as a piece of legitimacy, they'll cite the news article. And I see this happen all the time in these hearings where you'll see a news article that they'll cite from the New York Times or they'll cite from the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal or CNN. And it's a story that was sourced by an anonymous government official. So they plant the story in a way, and then later on, because it's a quote-unquote legitimate news agency, it's considered fact and collaborate. How do you say
Collaborated.
It? Thank you. Yeah. Or collaborated. I don't know why my mouth can't work. I'm back in Washington time now, and I think my tongue doesn't work. It's still in Texas time. Which would be like bedtime for it. So anyways, the FISA warrant, I think we'll get more information from the FBI that'll sort of be, I think because they're in damage control mode with Peter and Lisa. Peter and Lisa, the lovers, quote unquote, and also Comey. I think they're in such damage control mode that they'll probably try to release information about this that shows that they did try to verify the dossier. But because of the way the cycle works and they have to get it cleared and they have to get it areas redacted, the news cycle's gotten ahead of this whole thing and shows that the FISA warrant right now is pretty much based on this dossier and then verifying it through Yahoo News, which looks really weak, right? So we'll see.
Yeah, it doesn't look clean right now.
Now, there is also another big hoopla with all of these intelligence assets, these quote-unquote officials. And how many times have we heard a, quote, former government official or someone familiar with the matter? These are always these old guys
The
that
code
are
words, the phases, yeah.
You got your Schiffs, you got your Brennans, of course, your good buddy.
Friends.
Michael Hayden, who
family.
goes on all the time, is on the payroll. They really are. They're on the payroll of the media. And it's always been like this super strange experience. And I remember when it first started happening because we started talking about it on the show when all of a sudden these intelligence agency guys started going public, and it kind of started happening really after the Snowden leaks. Before then, like, you wouldn't really ever see the NSA director on TV, and you wouldn't see the CIA director being a commentator or a former CIA director being a commentator. But now it's totally common to see Leon Panetta coming on MSNBC or to see John Brennan on CNN or Michael Hayden on CNN. That's super common for him to go on all of the networks. He goes on all of them, and I play clips from them all the time. And this has just sort of turned into a very common occurrence where they're on the payroll, perhaps even earning millions of dollars a year. And it's been a fascinating occurrence to watch. And I think it is kind of worth going, like, why do they still have clearance?
It's an unprecedented threat aimed at some critics of the commander-in-chief's. The White House now considering stripping the security clearances of 6 former intelligence officials.
Now look at this lineup. Brennan, Comey, Clapper, Hayden, Susan Rice, and Andrew McCabe. We don't talk about McCabe much or Susan Rice, but Susan Rice is believed to be one of the early internal leakers of the dossier and spreading it around the government. And you got to wonder, why does Susan Rice still need top secret clearance? Michael Hayden is a frequent TV commentator, as is now James Clapper and John Brennan, who are actually on the payroll of NBC as political and security analysts. Why do they need top secret clearance?
But here's the thing, though, man. Just because they have clearance doesn't mean that they can just go to a website and download whatever they want. There's still a process for them that get information.
But it seems like they're profiting from what should be an extremely privileged position. Like, it seems like that position also comes with it kind of a life
just
of
having
secrecy.
clearance, though, just having clearance doesn't get you automatic access. Clearance does not equal access.
No, but it brings with it a level of legitimacy. So say if John Brennan makes up some bullshit about something and then leaks it, it sort of brings this air of credibility around it. Where if he was just some former retiree, a government official who's no longer connected and briefed in, like, it has a lot less weight to it, I think.
But I mean, I know people that have levels of security, high security. And just because, like I said, just because like you have the key card to get you in the building doesn't mean you're going to get to see what's on the screen or you're going to get a printout. Or I mean, there are legitimate layers of access. And when they say
to me though, it seems like the trade-off. Okay, you want to become a TV personality, then that disqualifies you from being cleared as top secret because you are in a inherently public medium. You could accidentally leak something. In fact, there is an example of John Brennan who did accidentally leak something about an asset that was still in the field a few years ago. That did actually happen, like 4 years ago. So it's not completely unprecedented.
But if they're not allowed to leak the information, and it's been proven that
they do leak.
Well,
I think all of those have been.
But
leakers.
if it's been proven and it's against the law, then where are the charges? Otherwise,
I think they're too busy investigating email and Russians.
But see, that's the thing that bugs the hell out of me about this. If
think about all the leaks we've seen coming out of the Trump White House. Some of that stuff has been conversations of world leaders.
Again, if these six, and I'm just taking a position here that
we know Comey leaked. We actually know that.
All right, so where are the charges?
I don't think it's a matter of what he leaked.
All right.
So he didn't necessarily leak anything that was classified. He leaked memos of his conversation with Donald Trump through a friend.
I mean, if any of these guys did something wrong, then they should be charged for it.
I think it's a matter of, so you have a couple of things. So like if you're going to criticize Trump for doing things that are outside the norm or doing things on Twitter the president shouldn't do, then when the FBI director leaks, that's unprecedented. An FBI director leaking the memos of his personal interactions with the current sitting president. Maybe 30 years down the road when a memoir is being written about the president, the FBI director hands over his memos and then it finally goes in a book. That's what was like. That was life before Trump. And now the memos get released while the dude's in his first year of office. But that's not something an FBI director does, or really any of these guys going on TV. What's happening is completely unusual. It's not normal.
Well, all of it's unusual and not normal. To paint a broader stroke on it.
It would just seem to me, by default, if you're going to be on TV and you're going to be on the payroll of a news organization, you're disqualified to be declassified.
I just think it's one of those things where if you're going to set this precedent now,
yeah.
And if you're going to legitimately do this,
yeah, it's got to be It's got to be,
because right now this honestly it feels a very focused, partisan, or like I don't like what you're doing, or whatever the case may be, whatever the reasons are.
Yeah,
this feels more political than security.
Yeah,
because if it's truly a security risk and a security problem, then anybody that has even had a whiff of leaking should have had it removed.
I would argue a few of the things that have been leaked have probably weakened our security state. Some of the conversations that have been leaked, some of the details out of the White House probably diminish the president's ability to negotiate with world leaders and guarantee like private conversations and whatnot. So I would say some of it probably has been damaging.
I just want to be abundantly clear. I'm not trying to give these guys a pass here. It's one of those situations where, if I did something wrong, I would expect to be punished. Nobody in these higher governmental positions or former governmental positions have that fear. They don't give a crap.
They seem untouchable.
Exactly. And so if you're going to do this here, that should be the precedent going forward.
What does it say?
Otherwise, then don't do it at all.
Doesn't
it
just send the wrong message to have James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, to now be on a partisan network like MSNBC? doesn't that also send the wrong message about those types of positions? Doesn't that inherently politicize now the director of National Intelligence's office?
Well,
and doesn't that open the door for future directors to also go into the TV medium, which just is going to make that means that's always going to be on their list when they're in office?
Newsflash, man. I mean, it's not just been happening for TV; it's been happening for private industry.
Yeah, that's one thing.
I mean,
that's one thing. That is one thing.
It's not just the media that's guilty on this.
Here's the other problem, though.
You got to make it. You have to strip it away across the board and not just fire in on one segment.
Here's the problem with these bastards is they all have this. They have this great get out of jail trump card that they can drop down in the middle of any conversation, and that is they can say, well, let's just say I can't tell you why I know that, and smile into the camera and just be like, so they could say, yeah, turns out that Donald Trump really likes to pee on the golf course when he's playing golf, but I can't tell you how I know that. Well, how do they know that?
Or they could be lying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because they have
they could have no security clearance and still say that.
I can't tell you for national security
because
reasons.
someone could tell them the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things that it bugs because it's like this does feel political instead of there's a security risk.
I think, but it's also kind of exposing like kind of like this widening problem that we have where all of these people who are political hacks have access to secret information even after they're out of office. And there is got to be, I mean, it's not lost on me why this would be in place.
So
you would want to have like the current CIA director to be able to consult the former CIA director, and especially in that kind of role, there's probably very few people that would be a peer. So it's clearly advantageous for standing people in government positions to be able to consult with people that served in those roles in the past, and to be able to do that, they have to have clearance. That's not lost on me. I'm not dumb, but it seems like we could cast a bit narrower of a net here. We have a lot of people in the system right now that have access, that are retired, that are working in media, that are probably not getting actively consulted. For example, Michael Hayden's already said, yeah, I don't go in and do classified consultations anymore. Pull it for all I care. So I just, that's the other thing to consider here, is there is some legitimacy to it, but I think it's a system that's getting abused, and people are leveraging that to make a buck.
I think you would have to
make money.
I mean, first off, our politicians would have to inflict a self-inflicted wound, creating a law saying that if you've worked in a top secret situation, you are not allowed to do X or Y or whatever. And part of me is like, and I don't care, Democrat, Republican, Independent, I don't care. It's one of those things where, are what they're leaking is true or not? And and there's a whole separate argument about that, right? Because, first off, the damage of leaks, causes problems. But then again,
hey, that's Putin's talking point.
But then, hold on. But then again, don't we all deserve to know what the hell's going on, right? Without spin?
That's what Putin says about the DNC leaks. You're carrying water for Putin now. Dude, you're carrying water.
I think everybody would just want to know what the hell's going on.
Carrying water from Mother Russia.
Yeah.
I want to read something to you. Producer Matt linked this to me, and this is from the desk of Paul Ryan. And, okay, all right, I don't have a visual of it. It reads like this. Dear Director Clapper, today I am writing to formally request that you refrain from providing any classified information to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for the duration of her candidacy for president. This request is based on findings announced by FBI Director James Comey at a press conference on Tuesday, July 5th. It goes on to talk about how she's under investigation and how she has official briefings that she's already getting from the FBI and the CIA and will be getting after the convention. He also writes, as a former vice presidential nominee, I'm keenly aware of when Clinton will be getting a briefing, goes into all of that. He then also says there's no legal requirement for you to provide Secretary Clinton with any classified information, and it would send the wrong signal to all those charged with safeguarding our nation's secrets if you chose to provide her access to this information despite the FBI's findings. I firmly believe it is necessary to reassure to the public and our nation's secrets that are secure. Should you choose to reject this request, I ask that you provide a rationale for granting Secretary Clinton access to classified information despite the FBI's findings. Now, it goes on to talk about thank you for your prompt attention and your professionalism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you for keeping America safe. What I find to be really interesting about this entire letter here is it's asking him politely. He says, "I'm formally requesting." And then he also later on talks about how I ask you to stop. He's not ordering Clapper. He can't tell Clapper what to do. He can just ask him to stop. Because Clapper and the intelligence community are running the show. And even when Paul Ryan is writing an official letter signed by Speaker Ryan to Clapper, he's saying, "Can you just please stop leaking information to somebody who's already has official intelligence channels that are coming to her
Or is
and is
this
currently under investigation?"
Not a possible political bullet point that he can say in public, "Hey, I have written to Mr. Clapper and blah, 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 blah."
But my point remains, there's obviously a problem here with these people using their access inappropriately.
Absolutely. I agree with that 110%. I mean, you can't agree any more than 100. I know that.
All right, continuing on.
But yes.
Continuing on.
Former intelligence officials.
They've politicized and in some cases monetized their public service and security clearances.
Most of the officials have worked for both Democrats and Republicans and have been tough on President Trump publicly. Isn't the president doing exactly what you just said the president doesn't want all these people doing?
No, the president's not making baseless accusations of improper contact with a foreign government and accusing the president of the United States of treasonous activity.
That may be a reference to John Brennan, former CIA director and NBC News senior national security and intelligence analyst, who called last week's meeting with Vladimir Putin nothing short of treasonous.
I equate it to the betrayal of one's nation, basically aiding and abetting, giving comfort to an enemy.
Now he's on a list that includes former FBI officials James Comey and Andrew McCabe.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, I just want to. Yeah, let's back it up. So,
to the betrayal of one's nation, basically aiding and abetting, giving comfort to an enemy.
So first off, security clearance has nothing to do with his statement right there.
Right.
It's his opinion. He's an American citizen. NBC put him on the air. He gave his opinion.
Sure.
Okay. Security clearance or not, it doesn't matter. And after that speech happened, Trump got mad, made this announcement.
So I think I don't think I'm disagreeing that it's a political vendetta. I just think I agree that maybe they should have their clearance pulled.
And I agree, as long as you're consistent all going forward.
Yeah, right. I'm 100% on board with that. I think that statement that Brennan made there is ridiculous. I mean, I know who am I to say, but I can't imagine ever even just slowing down a building hostility with Russia is a bad thing. Like, even if it's temporary, even if it only lasts for a couple of years, it is a good thing. So I just find that to be so intensely wrong. And I wonder if it isn't this worldview where Russia is the number one bad guy and anything that you do to support them is treason because Russia is the ultimate bad guy. They have the ultimate spy. They have the ultimate Putin. They have the ultimate 4D chessboard. And in their world, anything that is viewed otherwise is lunacy because there's so little time left to respond to the Russia threat.
Now, he's on a list that includes former FBI officials James Comey and Andrew McCabe, neither of whom currently have security clearances because they were fired. Michael Hayden, former CIA director, says the new threat won't have any effect on what I say or write. Former Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice, silent for now.
I think this is just a very, very petty thing to do.
It's Clapper right there.
Former intelligence leaders typically keep their clearances so they can talk about sensitive matters with their successors.
A security clearance is also very valuable for former officials in the private sector, and so to lose one could amount to a financial penalty.
Oh, that would be a shame. Wouldn't want that to happen. So the phone call there from Clapper is really kind of the tip of the iceberg. He is very upset.
Director Clapper, thank you so much for joining me. First,
so of course he's going to run to
Sarah
CNN.
Sanders specifically said yesterday. She said they, meaning you and others, have politicized and in some cases monetized their public service. I want to ask you point blank, sir, have you made any money since leaving office using your security clearance?
Okay, that should be a pretty, just a no. It's always been my personal opinion and my analysis, you know? I mean, yeah.
You're going to get a political answer, right?
Well, not directly the security clearance, but I guess, I have benefited from the 50 years of service, both in the military and in civilian capacities in the intelligence community. I wrote a book about it.
I think that's exactly it. And so if that's still a valuable asset. Like, you could still say that's a legitimate analysis to have somebody making an analysis on CNN that is James Clapper. Like, there's still a perfect legitimate analysis. They don't have to have the classified clearance to do that.
Right. Yeah.
And I appear on this network, and it's, by virtue of that experience. Well, a part of that, of course, is the eligibility for access to classified information. And so, in a sense, yes, I've benefited from that experience.
He goes in there to say that what Trump is trying to do is sort of oppress those certain people. It's a political thing, like you've been talking about. And I think it probably is. And I think it's probably not too far off. And the way Rand Paul, and I'll cover this in the overtime so we can keep moving, but the way Rand Paul wants to do it is he wants to just set it like as a cutoff time for any like former CIA officials and certain government officials. After just a certain amount of time, like, you have to have an authorized reason to retain a clearance and just apply it universally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Why
I mean,
not?
but then again, like going back to what I said earlier, that would be a self-inflicted thing. And how often does the government do self-inflicted things that hurt themselves?
Slow things down, limit access to their own.
Yeah. When does that happen?
Never, dude.
Yeah.
So Harry Reid sort of was the spark that started the forest fire of Russia meddling. And it's so long ago, you probably don't even remember, but he had a really banged up face. And he claimed that he had an exercise accident, but then it was like some people rumored that it was a fight and all these. This is ancient history now. Harry Reid, we don't even talk about anymore. But if you go way back into the time machine, you will discover that he played a rather pivotal role in this whole thing. So I want to play a bit here about getting access to information that Harry Reid may have gotten very, very early on.
Group Judicial Watch tonight suing the CIA for communications between former CIA Director John Brennan and former top Senate Democrat Harry Reid. Did Brennan feed Reid information about alleged Russian collusion with the Trump campaign so Reid would then publicly push that narrative during the 2016 campaign? That's what they're trying to find out. Chris Farrell is Director of Investigations and Research at Judicial Watch and joins us live. Chris, great to have you with us.
Hey, Shannon.
Okay, so you've officially filed this lawsuit. Let's walk people through a little bit of what happened. In August, Brennan briefed a lot of folks, including then the top Democrat in the Senate, Harry Reid. 2 days later, Reid writes a letter. It includes this to Comey, then FBI director. The evidence of a direct connection between the Russian government and Donald Trump's presidential campaign continues to mount. The American people deserve to have a full understanding of the facts from a completed investigation before they vote this November. He had to know the letter would go public. So now that narrative about collusion is now within the election conversation.
Sure. This is just one of the channels by which the Stop Trump gang, and there was obviously a handful of operators here, used various systems, whether it was the executive branch agencies, the Congress, to feed this narrative in and just have it create the perception that, well, everyone says, and well, everyone knows, and there's an echo chamber effect. And once everyone starts saying the same thing, it takes on a life of its own. And it's an information operation. It's how the public is manipulated. It's how the media is manipulated. And all you need is, the tiniest little kernel of half-truth, and they embroider and embroider and embroider, and they start repeating one another, and this echo chamber has a very negative effect.
Well, we all remember 4 years prior to that, Harry Reid took to the Senate floor and said the word on the street, quote, is that Romney didn't pay taxes, or something to that effect, that people are saying.
It's rumor and innuendo. It's slanderous in many cases.
That's what it really bothers me about these intelligence officials. Like, these guys high up are just a bunch of political actors. And that's so gross because they are the top of this massive, powerful spy machine, and then they use it to manipulate politics.
This is why I think we're doomed, man. I mean, this is how I get real pessimistic, know, and I fall down that rabbit hole. Because it honestly gets depressing because it's like, at the end of the day, it feels like nothing matters in that regard. Like, they're going to try to, line their own pockets. They're going to, try to keep themselves going, try to be political because their team is beating the other team, whether it's the blue or the red. It doesn't matter. It's just get the other guy, get your stuff passed, whatever.
My millennials, stay woke.
So there's one more thing that broke today just before the show started, kind of in the same category.
Back with this Fox News alert. Just a few moments ago, Republican lawmakers announced that they will file articles of impeachment against Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein. Joining me now with what this means, how all of this is going to play out, former Congressman Jason Chaffetz, author of the new book, The Deep State. Good to see you tonight, Congressman. Good to have you
that
with
money.
us.
Yep, same thing.
Yep, same thing.
What does it mean?
I'm glad Congress is finally standing up for itself, because how many times do you have to have duly issued subpoenas that are just totally ignored by the Department of Justice? If you had done this, you'd be in jail. But the only way to enforce a subpoena is to get the Department of Justice to do it. And Rod Rosenstein has been more than cavalier in saying, no, I'm not going to comply with that.
I don't know where this is going to go, but what they're attempting to do is get more information about the FISA
It's
warrant.
political.
Yeah.
You know why? Because they don't have the votes in the Senate to do it.
They want to, yeah, and on top of that, they want to flaunt something that they know is in that thing.
I mean, you want to hear the bacon theory?
Oh yeah, dude. You know I love me some bacon.
I know you do.
Wait, I like money too, but
I know. Well, I like money. We should totally
we
hang
all
out.
like money. Yeah, I got bills to pay. Can you do a Clinton? I got bills to pay.
I got bills to pay.
That's pretty good.
All right.
Do you remember that clip?
Yeah.
It was good. All right, what's your bacon?
It's real simple bacon. It's a simple bacon from Savannah, lightly peppered, of course. Get Rod Rosenstein out of there. Get somebody new in there to fire Mueller. The end.
Yeah, I mean that is some basic bacon though.
I know. I told you it was basic.
Yeah,
I told you, but
and these guys are doing it on behalf of Trump.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, otherwise,
otherwise,
it's not. I mean, first off, this is not going to go anywhere. This is totally political.
That's exactly it.
Because yeah, you need the votes in the Senate to do the impeachment. Yeah, the House is going to draw up articles. However, this does set a bad precedent. Now we're off bacon. It does set a bad precedent. If you're going to start lowering the standard, in my opinion, on articles of impeachment to get this guy out of there, what's to stop this from going forward to other positions?
Remember, they kind of did this. They did this. What was Obama's attorney general? They did this to Eric. What his face is?
Eric Holder.
Yeah, they did the same thing to him, and it didn't really go anywhere. So it's not totally new, but yeah, you're right. It is political, and you know what?
Even though Rosenstein is a registered Republican, right?
Hey man, hey.
So she's now running for president. Will you continue to give speeches?
Oh yeah, I got to pay our bills.
Hey, yeah, man, I got to pay our bills. I can get it down.
That's one of my favorites, dude.
I got to pay our bills.
So speaking of hot mics, CNN is quite proud of themselves right now.
It is a big night here. I'm Chris Cuomo. Welcome to Primetime. We have one of the Michael Cohen tapes, the secret recording of President Trump back in 2016.
This has been building for 3 weeks. We've been talking about Cohen
Lordy,
signaling.
let there be tapes.
We've been talking about Cohen messaging that he was going to flip. First, he had that off-camera interview with George Stephanopoulos, and then it was like more and more stuff. And now we have a tape. And I'm not going to play this whole clip, but I promise you that they play this thing a dozen times. It's so funny. They're so proud of themselves.
By Cohen, in which he and then candidate Trump discuss arrangements surrounding a payment to former Playboy playmate Karen McDougal that was made by a third party, David Pecker, as head of the National Enquirer. This all happened in the months before the election. Now, this is not a great quality recording, and that will be relevant to its analysis. So first I want to play you the entire recording, not all of which is relevant to the payment. So listen for yourself.
Let me know what's happening, okay? Oh. Maybe because of this, it would be better if you didn't go. You know, maybe because of this, for that one. You know, I think what we should do is get rid of this because it's so false what they're saying. It's such bullshit. I think this goes away quickly. I think it's probably better. Do the Charleston thing, just this time. Yeah. In 2 weeks, it's fine. I think right now it's better.
Cohen
Yeah?
hasn't spoken yet.
Okay, honey.
By the
You
way.
take care of yourself. Thanks, Pam.
Yeah, looks sounds like Trump was on the
I'm proud
phone.
of you. So long. Bye.
Yeah.
What's up, Mike?
Great poll, by the way.
Yeah.
Seen it. Great poll.
Making progress.
Big time.
And you guys are good guy.
Oh, Pastor Scott?
I can't believe this. No, Pastor Scott. What's happening?
Oh, no. He's...
Can we use him anymore?
Oh, yeah. 100. No, you're talking about Mark Burns. We've told him
Well,
to...
I don't mean that. Mark Burns, can we use him
No.
anymore?
No.
Richard Lefraff, I'm sorry, Richard Lefraff just called. He just had me have a chance. He had an idea for you.
Okay. So we got served from the New York Times. I told you this regarding to unseal the divorce papers with Ivana.
You can see right from even this example right here. This is the kind of business that Cohen takes care of for Trump.
We're fighting it. Kaslowitz is going to...
never be able to get that done.
Never. Kaslowitz doesn't think they'll ever be able. They don't have a...
Give me a Coke, please.
They don't have a legitimate purpose.
Give me a Coke, please.
Give me a Coke, please, is becoming a meme on the internet.
Coke is it.
I can't believe he said please, everybody.
And I want the new Coke, not the classic.
Never. Kaslowitz doesn't think they'll ever be able. They don't have a...
Give me a Coke, please.
They don't have a legitimate purpose.
And you have a woman that doesn't want to unseal.
Correct.
So you've been handling it.
Yes, and it's all...
It's been going on for a while.
For about 2-3 weeks now.
All you have to do is delay it for...
Even after that, it's not going to ever be opened. There's no purpose for it. Told you about Charleston. I need to open up a company.
Now we're getting to the Stormy Daniels and not Stormy Daniels. What was the other gal?
The Playboy model.
Yeah,
McDougal, Karen McDougal.
Right. Now we're getting to the details on how to pay them off. He talks about getting tips on building a company. They talk about the type of payment. This is the interesting bit right here.
About Charleston, I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David, so that I'm going to do that right away. I've actually come up and I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up with
So what are we going to pay?
Funding. Yes. And it's all the stuff. All the stuff, because you never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be.
Gets it by
Correct. So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be...
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So
Don't pay with cash.
No. I got... No. Hey, no, how are you?
So what does he say there to you?
No. If you rewind it back, it sounded like no. I'll pay with cash.
Financing, which will be...
Listen, what financing?
We'll have
What
to
financing?
pay you. So
Don't pay with cash.
No,
I'll pay with cash.
I got... No. Hey, no, how are you?
Check. It almost sounds like he says check.
Pay you. So
Don't pay with cash.
No. I got... No. Hey, no, how are you?
And then he said check.
All right, now, a couple of things. There are side conversations. I wanted you to hear everything that was on
Wait,
recorded.
can we put Mr. Como, whatever? I'm glad actually that he played the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
We like to
shit
on CNN.
Get in the room,
right?
You know?
Well, we like to shit on CNN, creative editing. We make fun of all the media companies that do the creative editing. There's a lot of dead space, and when you're listening to dead space on the air on TV. People get nervous because it's like, oh my God, this is just boring.
Don't give them too much credit. They probably paid $5 million for it. They're like, if we paid
that's
$5 million, we're playing the whole thing.
No, that's fine. Whatever. Sure.
We're going to play the whole damn thing.
But you know what? All right. Good. Thank you for playing the whole thing. It lets us all hear and know what's going on.
All right.
I just wanted to point that out because we shit on him so much.
Provided to us. Those side conversations aren't relevant in my estimation. And I'm not including a translation of the tape because there is clearly a dispute about what is being said. So you have to listen. And I want to now play for you the portion that seems to matter the most.
So they play it a lot. They play it over and over again. They play it a lot.
Probably the cash part, right?
But Giuliani says, yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's all good. It's really good, actually. This is great for Team Trump, is what Giuliani says, because in there you hear that Trump's learning about it, and he wants to do it in a way that can be trackable.
The president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, told the New York Times that there is a tape. It's less than 2 minutes long, but he believes it contains a conversation that proves that the president didn't do anything wrong, because Giuliani says the president tells Michael Cohen in this recording that if Cohen did make a payment to somebody to write a check instead of sending cash, so there would be some sort of a record of the transaction. The woman that Cohen and Trump were talking about on this call that was apparently scooped up by Michael Cohen's lawyers as they were going through all of his correspondences, trying to figure out what was privileged and what was not, is named Karen McDougal. You see her on the screen right there. She claims that 12 years ago she had a 1-year-long affair with then businessman Donald Trump. She later came out in April and said that she regretted it. She started apologizing to Melania Trump. And the reason that she came out in April is because that is when she was released from a deal that she had made with the company that owns the National Enquirer, which she says paid her $150,000 for her story, but then never ran it.
So they buy the rights to her story and then never run it, and now that they own the rights to her story, they can hold on to it.
But I thought the president didn't do anything with Karen McDougal. Why would he have to pay us?
No, that was Stormy Daniels.
Oh, so he admitted the McDougal thing.
Well, I mean, you know.
What's the truth here again?
I mean, I guess they kind of are if they're acknowledging that Trump said write a check.
Right. That
to me seems like acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Like, why are you writing a check?
I mean, to me, I mean, yeah, I know there's probably campaign finance things and money that needs to be reviewed. I get that. But, you know, no one goes back to the basics. The basics is the president told the American people, he told all of us, in front of a national stage,
yep,
maybe in 140 characters or less, that he didn't do anything. Nothing happened. Nothing.
So the question is he lying, and is it a fraudulent transaction?
Let's analyze what we think we know right now. The Judge, Anna Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst with me in studio. And Judge, nice to see you.
Morning, Bill.
Giuliani's case, no payments ever made.
Right.
Giuliani's case, no indication of any crime. Is there?
There doesn't appear to be the indication of any crime, but I think that's the wrong analysis. There is an indication of a fraud. And the significance of that is if the client and the lawyer discuss the commission of a crime or discuss the commission of a fraud, there is no attorney-client privilege in that conversation. Meaning the tape can be used by anybody who can get their hands on it for any purposes.
Which would include
Bob Mueller? McDougal if she's suing the president, which would include Bob Mueller if he's investigating the president. Now, what's the fraud? The conversation is about paying National Enquirer to pay McDougal $150,000 to buy her story and to lead her to believe that the National Enquirer is going to publish her story. But the real aim here is to bury the story by duping her into selling it to them and then not publishing it. That failure to be truthful to her and the involvement of Donald Trump and Michael Cohen in that decision is the fraud.
You say that's not a criminal fraud.
It's a civil
That's a civil fraud. And what is the difference?
Criminal fraud is where you dupe somebody out of cash to enrich yourself. Civil fraud is when you dupe somebody out of cash for some other purpose. The other purpose here was to keep the story from being put in the press by lying to her and telling her, we'll pay $150,000. You don't talk to anybody else and we'll publish your story when they never intended to publish it.
Based on that analysis, criminal is more severe than civil.
Absolutely.
Is it not?
Yes, of course it is. But both civil fraud, criminal fraud are enough to burst the attorney-client privilege. That's where the Giuliani argument fails and the Lanny Davis argument prevails.
So that's why it matters, is it shows that there was some collusion, but not the kind that we've been talking about. And so it like the judge says, bursts that privilege.
Yeah.
And the reason why that could matter a lot is because it sounds like Cohen taped a lot of things.
Breaking news, more secret tapes. Federal prosecutors tonight in possession of 12 different audio recordings that were seized during FBI raids on Michael Cohen, the president's former lawyer. This is according to court filings. And it comes just 3 days after we learned there's a tape of Trump and Cohen talking about a payment to a former Playboy model who says she had an affair with Trump. Kara Scannell is out front. And Kara, what do we know about these additional tapes? Right now, there's a dozen out there.
That's right, Aaron. We've learned today that there are a dozen audio tapes that are now in the hands of prosecutors who are investigating Michael Cohen. What we've learned of these is that one of them is the tape we've been talking about since last week, where Cohen is discussing with Donald Trump the payment that American media made to Karen McDougal, the former Playboy model who alleged an affair with Trump. And that payment and this recording came before the election. Now, what we've learned is that 11 of these other tapes include conversations that Cohen had with members of the media and reporters. Now, what we don't know is exactly how many of the 11 are with reporters and what other individuals might have been picked up on these tapes. Now, all this has come out because initially Trump's lawyers had wanted these tapes to be kept secret and out of the hands of prosecutors by saying that they should be covered by attorney-client privilege. But on Friday, they withdrew that request, and the special master, the court-appointed person in charge of reviewing these files that were seized in that raid for privilege, said, okay, now that they've withdrawn this request, I'll hand them over to the prosecutors. So, Aaron, that is the latest there. But we.
All right, so that is fascinating that there's these tapes, and you got to wonder what else they seized. If he's recording conversations, there's probably got to be all kinds of interesting notes. That could be fascinating to follow, and no wonder why he's playing ball. No wonder.
Well, and it's one of those situations where, and I see Veratunda in the chat room making a correlation between this and Bill and Monica. Well, Bill was impeached. I mean, he didn't get removed, but they went through the proceedings and such. So it's one of those situations, and that was based on the lie, right? That was based on the fact that he said one thing and it proved to be something else. And at the end of the day, I just want the truth,
Nothing but the truth.
And I want everybody to be held to the same standard. And apparently, right now, some of our friends are not.
What do you say, buddy? Should we freshen it up?
I say
little high note.
Actually, before we do the high note, can we head over to my sack? Because
of course. How do we get to the high note?
Well, first
through the sack.
Through the sack. You have to come through the sack.
Exactly.
So, hey, just one comment, but don't forget, if you are a Club 33 member, look out to your inbox every single week. I send out a note before we do our live show on Wednesdays that, hey, we want to know what's on your mind. We want your feedback. It is your direct connection to Chris and myself over at patreon.com/unfilter. And our trusty, awesome Club 33 guy, Mr. Veratuna, writes in and says, hey, well, that news finding tape's probably overblown, though. What narks me this week, though, is the evidence that the UK spooks, the GCHQ, have illegally been collecting data for NE on 15 years. And no one in the media or government is even discussing it, let alone saying it is wrong.
Yeah.
It is some sort of collective shrug, which just pisses me off more than I can say. And I agree.
I noticed.
100%.
I couldn't find any good audio on that story, so I just read it from the register, which I have some links in the show notes. But Veratunda's right. There's no media coverage of it. Couldn't find anything.
And they ask why I decided to pull my real name off the internet in about 2003 as well. Well, all I can say, I saw the writing on the wall and nothing. But
nothing, Chase?
And nothing has convinced me that a dystopian future is what in store for us all. Sorry, it's hard to read. A little interesting stuff.
And you're super drunk.
Yeah, I'm very drunk. Stop being manipulated by the bread and circus of the 21st century and start waking up and smelling the corruption all about us.
Damn, a bread and circus reference. That's
Don't
deep.
let Unfilter slide into that sort of brain-dead commentary we see every day on TV.
Hey.
Part of the problem.
Hey, who covered the story?
Well, we did.
Who covered the story at the top of the show?
We did.
Who did?
We did.
That's right. That's right.
So don't forget, it's one of those things where, we take a lot of cues from you guys as well. If you have some digs and interesting things going out there, you can head over to our contact
page. Is that
page.
the only one?
That's the only one?
Well, hold on. Let me play your wrap-out music then.
I didn't know I had out music.
Yeah, there you go.
And
now
that
you can
was
do your
the
plug.
sack. That's right. Head on over to unfilter.show. Use the contact link if you want to send us some cool inside stories.
Things things you can still get your email in, but if you want to get it right on the show.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/unfilter.
Patreon.com/unfilter gets you direct access. But now, I think we're fully woke.
Is that it, really?
And
that was a short sack, dude.
I know.
After all that buildup.
I know.
I was prepared for a big sack, man. I almost feel like we
spent it all. We spent it all earlier, Maxine. But hey, I think my mom is calling.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Mom?
You know what Mommy needs?
Mom?
Mommy needs a joint.
Okay, Mom.
All right, so let's talk about something that starts out as a tragedy and then shows you how cannabis growers could be great employers.
All right, Art, thank you. Now to our top story, a marijuana farm up in flames. It happened late Monday afternoon on Cherry Avenue in Greenfield. That fire starting outside of a greenhouse before spreading then to 8 others.
Oh.
Wow, man, right?
And we are now hearing from firefighters and the owner of that marijuana business who explains what's next for hundreds of employees.
Yeah, so it turns out they're like the area's largest employer.
Action News reporter Sierra Starks has more.
Now, firefighters tell me that by the time they got here, the fire had already taken 4 of these greenhouses, and by the end of it had spread to this entire row behind me. Greenfield's first cannabis facility, Loudpack Farms, on fire Monday afternoon.
A little bit after 4, around 4:20, we had reports of...
So it's in Greenfield on Cherry Avenue. It goes up in flames, and they got a call around 4:20.
Fire.
And with the heavy black smoke that spread around town, there was possibly no way you could miss it. The cause of the fire still under investigation, but firefighters believe the fire may have started outside the greenhouses or between the greenhouses.
We do have an area that we believe it did start, and then it spread very, very quickly. Again, it was wind-driven, and the winds pushed it through the greenhouse structures very, very quickly.
We're told the greenhouses did not have sprinkler systems.
Sprinklers would have indeed slowed that down and possibly,
wrecked the crops, though.
Caused a lot less damage.
Now this
Would it,
entire...
though? I don't know. Probably less than fire.
I mean, yeah. I mean, because
like this really wrecks
because you
the
would
crops.
figure that the plants could dry out after a dousing of water as opposed to being gone.
Yeah.
Row completely charred. Greenfield Fire says there was a very rapid evacuation process and all employees got out safely.
Very first concern was the safety of the people, and I was happy to hear that everyone got out safely. That was very important to me. And then the second thing is the loss of jobs, and that's what I'm concerned about, is these people that do have bills to pay, children to raise. I'm hoping that they can continue working.
Loudpack is currently Greenfield's largest employer with about 300 people on payroll at the facility. Loudpack says Monday's fire will not affect employment. In an email, they said, quote, "We will rebuild our facility and no one should feel that their job is at risk due to these unfortunate circumstances."
They start out with saying we invest in our people. So that's, you see, so not only does it bring jobs, turns out to be one of the largest employers in the area, but then after half of its S burns down, it's keeping people's jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because at the end, I mean, isn't it?
Frickin' marijuana is so dangerous.
Well,
so dangerous, dude.
Hey, Chris, I don't know if you heard, it's a gateway drug.
Think about the kids in those families.
Dude, seriously.
Who now have happily employed parents, securely employed.
I mean, kids being able to wear clothes and go to school.
Think about the tax revenue that's going to schools. Won't somebody please think of the... Wait, I think we've got
Wait, stop.
Now, we're told that the fire did not spread to the main processing facility on site that you see over here, just that entire row of greenhouses. And again, the cause of the fire is still under investigation. Reporting in Greenfield, Sierra Starks, KSBW.
It's just kind of a cool story. And then while we're on the subject of the monies, there's a good story coming out of Canada, and that is...
Sorry, I was looking at the chat. And in other news, the rest of the town has a great day.
Hey, get downwind, man. What?
Dude,
hey.
Dude, let's like, I got an idea, right? We're going to set it all on fire, man.
And then just get, like, the camping chairs out.
Yeah,
and, like, the hot
and like
dogs.
the wind will just blow it at us. It'd be great, dude.
Man, it's going to work so
It'd be
good.
awesome.
Mommy needs a joint.
It's not just crypto that's surging. Check out the cannabis stocks, Canopy Growth, Aurora Cannabis, MedRelief, all rolling in the green today. Here's a Tilray. The
Chris, side note, I know we're not talking about it, and you're not doing your Bitcoin show anymore. What's with the Bitcoin on CNBC? Is this new? I don't watch CNBC
They've been
that
following
much.
it for a while, yeah.
Wow.
As it surges, they start putting a ticker up, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, check out the puns in this. Check out the puns in this. You ready? It's so punny.
Hot stock that went public last week keeps going higher. Get it? The stock price at $17 closed today at $29, so nearly a double. While today, Acreage Holdings, yes, the pot business backed by former White House Speaker John Boehner, closed a $119 million funding round and plans to go public.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the bit right there. Isn't that something?
No wonder why Boehner loves the money now. Jeez.
Oops, that's not the right one. Sorry about that. That's this one. Yeah, that is the big thing right there, is the money behind the company the Boehner is backing. If you didn't catch it, here, I'll just back it up a hair so you can hear it. That's it right there.
$19 million funding round and plans to go public.
$19 million
119.
100. Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Boehner closed a $119.
Whoa.
Yeah, I told you. Yeah, dude.
Whoa. Yeah. So no wonder why he's all
Chris,
on board
we're in
now.
the wrong business. It's time to close up shop.
There was a time and place where we could have gotten in the IT business in this. We could have made some money.
Dude, I think we still could.
Yeah, maybe.
I think there's a problem.
In the meantime, if you would like to stick around, there's a lot more show coming up in the overtime. We're going to go deep into some topics, including expand on a few things we touched on here in the main show. But if you've got to go, if you're not a dessert kind of person, maybe Chase could leave you with a little wisdom to go get more Chase in your face throughout the week.
Chris, people can head over to my Twitter, @Nunes, N-U-N-E-S. If you don't do the Twitter thing, that's okay. You can head on over to geekgamer.tv where you can see how I'm doing right now with all the pinball and geeky and gaming stuff that's out there. And also, by the way, ggtvdiscord.com gets you right in our Discord. You can come chat with me, chat about gaming, tech. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chris, if people want to see what's going on with you.
You know what I'll say?
Yeah.
At Chris Elias.
Hey, that works.
Yeah, at Chris Elias, at Jupiter Signal for the whole network, and our live times, jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. We usually do it on a Wednesday. Get that converted to your local time there. irc.geekshed.net for the chat room.
Nice.
Hound, Unfilter. Also, links to everything we talk about and more, unfilter.show/288. And if you want to subscribe, unfilter.show/subscribe.
Can I get another plug in real quick?
Yeah, do it, man.
To our Patreons.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/unfilter. Honestly, you guys are the lifeblood of our show.
You know what I'm going to do?
Thank you so much.
I'm going to give them a shout out right there at the top of the overtime just for them.
I love that.
Let's
Thank you for doing that.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks so much. If you got to get out here, I just want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And we'll see you right back here
Next week.
Ooh, some nice dramatic music to end it on. That's nice. All right, jbtitles.com. JB Titles. Let's go pick our title. Thank you, everybody, for making it. It's a warm one. Hey, why don't you go hit that power button over there on that AC there?
I will do that.
jbtitles.com. JB Titles. Thank you, Mojon. Amtrak's triumphant return. What is that even related to? Unclear clearance, Playboy models and tape. That's pretty funny. Buying the bimbo story. Wow, System T coming in strong with that one. It'll kick in. Cashing in on clearance. That's not bad. The intro was about the tapes, though. Trump's tramp tapes. Wow, that's also very... yeah. What do you think, Chase? What do you think? I think something with the tapes would be good.
Yes, I agree. I think we had a good one that I saw earlier about the tape. Coke and Cash. I saw that. I was like, oh, that's funny. Coke and Cash.
Coke and Cash isn't bad either.
It's a little meta.
Yeah. I could do Coke and Cash. I'd kind of like it to have tapes in there.
Yeah.
Trump's tramp tapes. Is there another T we could use besides tramp?
I wouldn't want to use the term tramp.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Is there another T we could use?
Trump's titillizing tapes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ooh, Arch Linux suggesting Trump tape troubles.
Trump tape. So what about should it be apostrophe S or just Trump tape troubles?
Trump tape troubles. I like that.
Yeah, I'm liking that.
Drop the S. I like it.
I think that's pretty good, dude.
I like the triple T, the triple threat.
Yeah, that's always a thing with us. We
Yes.
always like that.
Yes.
So I take the Trump tape. Yeah, there it is. Trump tape troubles. Yeah, but it's a little hard to say actually.
Yeah, I know, but I like it.
Yeah, and I'll drop the apostrophe S, and we'll give the credit to Arch Linux for coming up with that.
Yeah, buddy. And he says he wasn't even here.
Yeah, well, it was a good episode for you to title. I feel like it was a decent one. There's a lot to cover. It was a little long. I think it drug at a few points, but, that's even with me. I was cutting stuff live, too. It's just sometimes some things, like, you get into it, it's like, it takes longer. We got things. We got things to say. 288, buddy.
Wow.
Unfiltered
12. We are 12 away from the big one.
It doesn't seem like very far, but in
But
actuality,
it is.
12
It's 3 months.
long, hard weeks. All right. Trump tape troubles.
We got to do something special for 300. We have to.
If it involves eating, I'm down.
Well, I can't. I'm restricted right now.
Yeah,
on
I
eating.
should be too.
By the way, I should give an update. I saw it in the chat, and I meant to come back to it last week, and I missed it. I don't know who asked last week. But I am doing a diet thing.
Yeah.
I've been on it now for the past couple of months, roughly.
How's it going?
I am down.
You enjoying it?
Enjoying?
Are you enjoying the results?
Yes.
Okay.
The results are valid.
Okay.
I am down approximately 35 pounds.
Yeah, okay, I'd enjoy that.
Overall, now I wasn't on the program, but overall I'm down nearly 45 pounds.
The program?
Well, the program that I'm on. I still have a good chunk to go.
The program.
I've been, by the way, that's kind of the reason why I've been neglecting to show myself anywhere on camera, and even selfies or anything like that, just because of the fact that I will share when I'm done.
Sure,
because it's one of those things where I'm not trying to make it a gloaty thing. You know, I'm just trying to.
It's a me project.
Well, it's a me project, but on top of that, it's a living thing. It's like I want to live, and I was getting to a point where some of the things that I enjoy doing, I couldn't do, and I want to enjoy things again. So,
Hookers and blow,
and getting mommy joints.
All right, chat room. Thank you guys for making it. I think that's it for us tonight.
Yeah, no, it's been great fun, you guys. Thank you so much for being an awesome community out there.
Yeah, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Yeah, let's do this again. Sounds good.
All right, seems like a good idea.
Yeah,
maybe
we should do this
weekly.
again. Maybe call it a podcast.
Thanks, producer Matt. Have a great night,
Thanks,
everybody.
Matt. Thanks,
see
everybody.
you later.
See ya.